Introducing Shop, Click, and Pick, the simplest way to support those doing good in communities everywhere. We understand that shopping is a necessity, but with a slight adjustment, you can make a huge difference without spending any extra money. Here's how it works. Please visit communitypayitforward.us and navigate to the Find Your Partners tab. Discover our verified giving partners, which are trusted allies ready to meet your needs. Shop with any of the partners that resonate with you. Click a picture of the receipt or invoice, then pick the mission partner you wish to support and use their QR code to send the receipt directly to us. After that, all you have to do is sit back and enjoy your purchases, knowing that you've made a meaningful change for someone in need. Community Pay It Forward amplifies your business's impact by sharing the story of those who require your services, rallying support for those who need us all. Because no one needs to go it alone when we all come together.
Welcome to the 411 from View 3D.tv. Tech solutions for your business needs. Digital trends and winning strategies. The 411 from View 3D.tv is your trusted guide, keeping you up to date on technology's ride.
Welcome to the 411 from View3D.tv. Today we are talking about the website Your Destiny Begins Here. The provider list over 25 websites that connects veterans with life-changing resources. I'm Sarah Clark, here with my amazing co-hosts Robin Sterling and Gary Thompson. Today we're diving deep into the top 5 most beneficial resources for our veteran community.
I'm so excited about today's episode. These aren't just random resources. These are game changers that are making real differences in veterans' lives.
As a veteran myself, I can't wait to break these down. And trust me, folks, these are resources I wish I'd known about earlier in my transition journey.
Let's kick things off with an incredible platform called Projects, Teams, and Information in One Place. It's a veteran-owned business by Brad Hubbard that's revolutionizing how veterans organize their transition.
Oh, I love this one. Brad's company is a Notion provider, right? Can you explain what that means for our listeners?
Absolutely. Think of it as having over 100 different tools all connected in one place. Instead of juggling multiple apps and systems, everything's integrated. The best part? It's pre-built, so you don't have to waste time figuring it out from scratch.
And what I really appreciate is that once Brad and his team set it up for you, it's completely yours to control. No strings attached.
Speaking of making a difference, let's talk about our second resource, Community Pay It Forward, founded by Zach Clayton. This one really touches my heart.
Mine too, Robin. Zach's commitment to preventing veteran suicide is so crucial. Can you tell our listeners how the program works?
It's such a brilliant system. You shop with their giving partners, take a picture of your receipt, and then choose a mission partner to support. It's shopping with purpose.
And it creates this beautiful cycle of support within the community. Every purchase generates a referral award that goes toward helping individuals and charitable missions.
Our third resource is Job Soldier, and let me tell you, they really do have your six when it comes to finding employment.
Founded by Patrick Kelly, right? Even though he's not a veteran himself, his connection to service runs deep. He had 6 brothers who served in Vietnam.
And their commitment is incredible. They even say if they can't find the perfect job for you, they'll hire you themselves. That's putting your money where your mouth is.
Now, I've got to get personal about our fourth resource because Project Die Hard is doing amazing work. Founded by Brian Gibson, they're tackling one of the most critical issues in our community, mental health.
Their mission statement really says it all: bring hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. But it's how they're executing that mission that's so impressive.
Absolutely. They're not just raising awareness. They're actively advocating for increased mental health funding and creating real dialogue about the challenges veterans face.
And they understand that transition isn't just about finding a job. It's about finding purpose and rebuilding that sense of community we had in service.
Our fifth resource is something practical that every veteran should know about: RX Prime.
This is huge because healthcare costs can be overwhelming. We're talking about savings up to 80% on prescriptions.
And it's not just for the veteran. It covers their entire family. And get this, even FDA-approved pet medications.
What I love about their program is the privacy protection. It's HIPAA compliant, and they don't collect or sell patient information.
Looking at these top 5 resources together, what strikes me is how they address different but crucial aspects of veteran life, from organizational tools to mental health, from employment to healthcare.
And they're all connected by one thing, a genuine commitment to serving our veteran community.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who want to learn more, you can find detailed information about all these resources on the Your Destiny Begins Here website.
And remember, whether you're a veteran, family member, or supporter, these resources are here to help build a stronger community for everyone.
That's right, because when one veteran succeeds, we all succeed.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up today's episode. Visit the website yourdestinybeginshere.com for more details.
That video is brought to us by one of our wonderful, wonderful partners and one of my dearest, dearest of all friends, somebody who's been with us the entire 4-year journey of a mission for healthy heroes, Mr. Alan Holmes. How you doing, brother?
You know what, Zach, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and privilege to be here.
Well, look, let's be honest, this wouldn't be this program without you and your support and your dedication. Alan, you are specifically qualified to be speaking on a lot of the subjects that we've talked about today, and a lot of them that we're going to continue talking about because of for a couple reasons. One, you are a veteran of the United States, and secondly, you have spent a lifetime dealing with your own and others' issues with mental issues, right? Mental difficulties. You've dealt with this personally.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For those who don't know me, U.S. Army, 13 Bravo, proudly of this great country, the greatest country in the world. I take care of my wife, who has mental illness, and I'll go ahead and say PTSD, ADHD, bipolar, 2, because there's actually two of them. A lot of people don't know there's one manic and there's depression, and then there's schizoaffective, which is a combination of schizophrenia, schizoaffective. So I've been my wife's caregiver for 18 years now, 17 and a half, because we met in November of 2000 and we've been married since 2013. However, I didn't talk to mental illness, or I like to for wellness. Every day is a different day, and until 2007. So the medications that I am in charge of is at a pivot on the dime, and it was only the very fact being grown up in California and equally important, being a 13 Bravo veteran, I can handle such things. But I am not a passion connector. I'm a mental health advocate, and I am admit that I will. This is not something that one of the young lady said at a event organization that I went to. It's not a boo boo. This is something that is long lasting, and I'm in for the long run.
What is it about connecting businesses with each other that attracts you? And then, even more to the point, what is it about when a business is able to connect with local nonprofits and people who support other people that really draws your interest and really makes you run towards them?
Absolutely, Jack. Thank you for asking. Um, what really attracts me is people do not wake up. We as humans don't wake up just thinking of, and I'll use myself for example, Alan Holmes. But when they do connect with myself, then they learn about, and this is something for those who listen, wasn't planned, it's spontaneous. They will learn about community pay it forward. You've never heard about it. Community pay it forward is the true, like you say, for 4 years I'm to another friend of mine, Mr. Z, I'll throw him out. And that's what really does is I realize my mind thinks, and okay, we collaborate, network. That's what I collaborating, connecting with, say, Mr. Z. We can collab with network with Mr. Jack Clay. Now, I don't do nonprofits, but I have access to one of my associates that has over 40,000 nonprofits. Then another with the Triple Roundtable that Mary Jenkins, she runs the nonprofit. Well, some of them accidentally on purpose will learn about you pay forward. You see how it is? All full circles. Because I know that you only list nonprofits and businesses that support nonprofits that are legitimate, honest, and really serves a purpose. Because let's talk about the elephant in the room. Most people would say, well, how do I know the money is going to get to the nonprofit? Well, I can honestly say, I've known you long enough that I know that you don't have to, but you do it. Your passion, your dedication, your mission. So on behalf of veterans across the country and the families, Ghost Star family especially, thank you. Thank you, Zach, for what you do.
Well, I do what I do because individuals like you, Alan, gave up a portion of your life to serve a country that, you know what, we don't have to agree with everything that's going on in the government. And by God, you never will. There's never going to be a time in your life when you're going to sit there and agree with everything that's going on. But you know what? Honoring those who give up a portion of their life, who hand the government basically the keys to your life and say, you know what? Here we go. Shape me, put me in a position where I may lose mine. You deserve to be honored. You deserve to get all the help and even more help than what you are getting right now. This is a question that I really want to get to the bottom of during all of these episodes, during all these shows. Alan, I think it's a question that we really need to focus on for the rest of our lives. What do we need to focus on to support our veterans out there?
Well, first of all, we understand that there is different veterans who have different portions of their journey. There are ones that's transitioning. There are ones been there and they're still deployed. Like one of my associates, his son just left the Marines almost about a month ago. So he's not a veteran yet, but he's actively serving. Then there's another one of my associates that are her son. One came back hurt. The other one is okay, but his mental state is still he's just in between. So the question or the answer would be was veterans active as well as active serving in Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Space Force. We must keep them and their families because when the veterans serve, so does their families. We don't know when and if they're coming home, but if should they not come home, and this is a hard conversation, we shall never forget them. That is the something that it goes dear to my heart. That's why Project Our Heart is such a integral because you don't want to forget the story. We will not forget the story. So when I say I'm a mental advocate, that goes in alignment with a veteran advocate. Is we have to continue. This is not something that just every hour, every second, every couple of moons, only on during the vacation time or holiday time. This is 24, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is something that as long as I am on this earth, my goal is to always remember. My platoon sergeant said it right before I was honorably discharged in 1990. Never forget a veteran. Do not. And that stuck with me. So, yeah, thank you so much for asking that, Zach. Thank you.
You make one thing very, very clear. And I don't think that you understand how clear that you make this. And this is to myself, and I think to anybody who knows you, Alan. And this is really my point on this is to really push the fact that you call others who have served brother and sister. And anybody who's ever talked to you, when you hear that fact that someone has taken that step to take their life, you can watch yourself and the pain in your face and the pain in your heart. You can see how you take it as I lost a brother, I lost a sister. And watching people like you, Alan, really make what we are trying to do here so important, because I hate seeing you have to go through that pain. It hurts me watching you and your brothers and sisters have to fight through that pain, have to fight through that, because you know what they are, you know deep in your heart what the problems are, and I know that you would do anything in your power to make their lives better.
Yes, sir. And you touched a very um, very sensitive but a very much needed point, because I'm going to say this with all severity. I know that you, my friend, just lost someone you care about because of a, yeah, no excuse. And I want to say, my brother, I love you, and I hope and know he's looking down on you right now. Your uncle has is, when I heard the news through another source, Mr. Z shared with me, and it was with great reverence. I had to send out, so I want to say publicly, I'm sorry. There's no excuse for what had happened, and I'm going to say that this is again what reason why myself and the memory of your loved one always continue on. Um, that's why I do what I do, is because of stories like what you do it, and the fact that you're still soldiering on and having this incredible 22 February, a date that I encourage anyone to get with Zach and make sure that they get the form, support community paid forward. This is not some kind of, for those who are listening, some kind of something that Zach and I put together. This is me talking um, from the heart. We have to keep this mission alive. We have to, must. There's no ands, there's no debate, no, regardless of what the powers that be and all the, no. This is Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Space Force, calling all hands on deck, you know, nat, nat, natural guard, the National Guard, everyone that has put their uniform and is wearing that pass proudly. That's who I'm speaking to, and their families. And I mean, for the bottom of my heart, for those who lost loved ones, we will not forget. This is not just a tagline for special More Day, 4th of July. This is all year long. Because, and those who are serving currently right now, know this: we've got you. As the Marines say, we got your six.
Yeah. Well, as you were just talking about, and as I would really like to make sure that people understand, we do this once a year. This isn't a once a year problem. This is a once a year event because I want to make sure that we keep this event special, and we keep it what it is. But this is not a problem that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and go, thank God that that's over. This isn't going to disappear tomorrow. This is going to be a problem that we are going to be looking for an, a solution tomorrow and Monday and Tuesday and a week from Thursday and 6 months from Friday. We're going to continue looking for resources. And Alan, with people like you, and the other great organizations that were mentioned in that spot that we played at the beginning of this, and I'm going to ask you about them before we let you go. But with people like them, the focus starting in the for the rest of this year is we're going to start putting together a little handbook that talks about some of the services that they do, that's going to be available to people. Okay, we're going to start working on it. I have announced it today that we are going to work on doing this handbook that's going to be available not just to veterans, not just to heroes, but it's going to be available to everyone, because suicide, as you mentioned, your wife, this is something that, look, this is mental health doesn't affect just one person. It affects all of us, every single person. Everybody that we come in contact is affected by mental health issues, and we really need to focus on we've got to come up with support. So I want to thank you so much for joining us. But before I let you go, the 411 from View 3D TV, can you tell us about those five organizations and exactly how you are associated with them, please?
Well, first of all, that the View 3D.TV was by Daniel Stunklar. If it hadn't been for him, anybody know me, I mouthpiece, but his talent and skills, we went back and forth. But Daniel has been in that field incredible in implementing that. And as far as the resources, the Brad Hubbard is a veteran who is tirelessly effort. I mean, his talent is beyond. He can put together some tools and resources, and we've had many conversations. It's not about just charging; it's value, and I definitely connect with them one on one. Then the actual community paid for it. You may know about it. Zach Clayton. He's
I
a
think I've heard of it.
uh,
I know the
okay.
guy.
Check.
I know the guy puts out all kind of videos and stuff all over LinkedIn. Boy, I'll tell you, that guy must be working a lot.
Well, he is truly in my heart, and anybody knows me, you'll read between the lines. Those who are listening, you'll get what the get community paid for it. And then the third one, which is Patrick Kelly. Now he had six brothers, and he actually talks faster than me. But Patrick is a true job soldier. He's actually helping to help soldiers with their jobs, and he said they'll even find one if you don't. The fourth one is, of course, the Brian Gibson is with Project Die Hard. It's about stories, because this is where it really hits my spirit, getting a little emotional, is because your stories, when a veteran is unfortunately takes his own life or her life, um, the story behind that is unexcusable. But we don't want to forget our stories, and that's what Brian does. Now the fifth one is the RX Prime. I've actually been part of that. It's an affiliate program that I'm part of with Mike Conway. Started. I've known it since 2007, because no matter how bad we dislike prescription drugs, we want to save them, and unfortunately, some people have to use them, both veterans and non-veterans. So that's why that site is HIPAA compliant, which it doesn't sell your organization. So if you take all the resources, that's why I wasn't in any of them, because that wasn't. It's not about me. It's about we. As a master connector, all my offers are either strategic alliance or affiliates. Anything that sneezes wrong, they're gone. So I locate, research, monitor all, and continue to monitor all my resources. I believe in the highest ethical value, and I don't hide behind IP addresses. I am a strategic independent affiliate of all of them, but that's where all that. That's how I was able to come together on the brother. Hence the name Master Connector. I specialize in connecting business owners, entrepreneurs, and consumers with unique and innovative resources. When they say unique, I gotta call myself a human searching. Unique, here we are. Uniqueness is having this conversation like we're having now, and make sure those, again, 22 of February. Remember that number. We want to lower it, actually. Hopefully, it will be 0 February one of these days. But that's why I'm here. But thank you so much for having me, and it's my honor and privilege to continue to support any way I can.
Well, I greatly appreciate it. You can visit and connect with Alan by using either of the two links that you see below us. Make sure that, you know what, if you're in business, you need to get a hold of this man, because he is the human search engine. Still one of the first nicknames that I ever heard when I first met you. And I think I had to turn off my microphone because I was laughing so hard at that. It just fits you so perfectly. So you're also going to hear from Alan a little bit later on in the show when we rerun the family networking, because Alan is a huge part of that. He's a huge part of everything that we do. Alan is he is my brother. He is my partner, and he is my friend, and he's a dear friend. And I appreciate everything you do. Alan, again, it would not be the mission for Healthy Heroes without you, brother, and I appreciate you joining us.
Right back at you. Appreciate you. Love
We
you,
will,
brother.
we're going to continue with this. We'll be right. Well, we will be right back in a different area, a different place with new people. And Anissa, wow.
Technology was not our friend today.
No, this is one hell of a day when it comes to hit or miss. So, and my great friend, look, anybody who knows me knows Mr. Z. Welcome both of you guys to the 2025 Mission for Healthy Heroes. I got that right, and actually, I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised. So, um, been been getting a little weary here towards the last hour or so, but we're close, and it's been a fantastic show. Anissa, I'm going to start with you because you have offered us something extremely special to someone who is going to support our program, support what we do. Can you please help me by telling us what you're going to do for us?
Well, I donated a year-long membership to my Phoenix Women Healing Yoga. And I'm super excited to whoever wins it, I guess, purchases it. So it's a year-long membership. There's going to be recorded 24/7, recorded videos. I guess I should talk about what it is. It's yoga therapy. It's not fitness-based yoga. It's yoga therapy specifically designed for those with PTSD, trauma issues, chronic stress. And like I said, there's recorded videos in there. There's going to be live sessions as well. There's going to be some resources, a peer community group, and some education, some mini courses in there to help with managing symptoms and other things, and lots of goodness.
You make sure that you bring out the point that this is, well, yes, it's good for your physical being. It's more for the rejuvenative, for the healing, for the therapy. What's the difference?
Well, if we were to look at yoga as a big pie, we split the pie down in half. One half of it is fitness based yoga. And that's where you have like your Ashtanga and your Bikram and your co ed hot and naked yoga and aerial yoga and all that kind of fun stuff. And then on the other side, we have therapeutic yoga. And that's where we have we work with a group of people to help them attain a goal. Now we've got yoga for cardiac rehab, yoga for cancer. I work with PTSD and TBIs, traumatic brain injuries. There's all kinds of different ways that respiratory support. We all have a niche, and we're all helping those populations attain some sort of a goal. My goal is to help people move trauma out of their bodies. We hold trauma in our bodies on a cellular level in some muscle groups more than others. And so we really work those particular muscle groups to exhaustion, and that helps to release the trauma.
What is the difference between PTSD and C-PTSD?
Complex
Complex. Okay.
PTSD.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I when I read through your certificate that you sent me, that came up, and I was reading it, and I'm like, I don't really know what that is.
No,
So
there's different types of PTSD. So there's PTSD, there's CPTSD, there's secondary PTSD. I mean, there's all kinds, and this helps all of them.
right, and anxiety, depression, chronic high stress, chronic illness, and then we go into who this is perfect for. Who have we been talking about all day long? Caretakers, first responders, military, active or retired, high stress jobs or lives. Who has those?
I don't know. Just a
Uh,
small part of the population.
yeah, yeah, maybe one or two people in
Yeah.
like, you know, Bohoken or Hoboken, I guess. Bohoken, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna
Hoboken.
Hoboken, yeah. I'm just gonna mix it up.
We need to
Bohoken.
DoorDash you some coffee.
Yeah, something. Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking maybe we do. Uh, but let's see here. Medical fields, doctors and nurses, definitely. Uh, DV and sexual trauma survivors. Essentially, any woman who wears a cape. I love the statement, and we all wear capes of some sort. So I made sure that I told everybody that that came directly from you. I was not saying that I wore a cape, but you know, I definitely did not want. I was just afraid, Anissa, somebody was going to say that they want to see me in the cape.
I'm not going there. I'm not touching it. Not doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, I don't think I would. I don't think I would either. Yeah, that just wouldn't. No, no, we're not going to fly there. But
Are you
it's.
talking like full leotard or just a cape?
I'm a little weird, so I'm going to say probably. Let's go with like the 60s Batman outfit, the leotard with the. Yeah, let's not. Let's
Wow.
go on ahead and skip to why you do this.
Moving right along.
Yeah,
Great segue.
before we lose any followers.
Why do I do this? Well, a couple different reasons. One, yoga to me is a gift. Yoga is my lifeline. Yoga has kept me alive. This is why I'm here, is because of my yoga practice. My mat is my greatest confidant. I'm kind of like Linus with my mat. Actually, I actually had to have surgery about 2 years ago, and I took my mat with me to the hospital, even though I couldn't get on it. I'm like Linus with it. It is a gift, and I get to share this gift, and I hopefully will help people fall in love with this beautiful. It's an art form. It really is, in a lot of respects. Um, Also, too, I have PTSD. I have secondary PTSD. I am a caretaker. I walk this walk every single day. I am a sexual assault survivor. I am a bereaved parent. I mean, you name it. Um, I live this. And so I really can empathize with people. And I love sharing that time on a mat with women who are like me. It's special. There's a bubble that is created, and there's this yummy, wonderful energy. And it's kind of addicting, quite frankly. But it's beautiful, and we all need that. We all need each other for that.
Well, I just wanted to let you know, I am really glad that you were able to get in here and we were able to connect with everything that went haywire. I really appreciate both of you working with me. I had to get up and stretch a little bit. It's just sitting here this long. Kinda, yeah. Hey, yoga. There we go. Uh, but I've seen some of those yoga poses, and I'm telling you, if you see me in some of those yoga poses, I broke. That's all there is to it. I'm broken. It's going to take more than duct tape to get me fixed. But I want to thank you very much for your support of what we're doing. I know it's getting very late, and I appreciate you working with me to do this and to make this happen. Anissa, how do people get a hold of you?
I'm like a bad penny on social media. I just keep showing up.
I like
What
it
is
when you
it?
show up. You show up and share stuff. So
phoenixwomenhealing.com. I'm on IG. I'm on Facebook. Um, I'm on LinkedIn. That's where I really hang out the most is LinkedIn, believe it or not. Um, yeah, I'm all over the place.
Well, I greatly appreciate you joining us. If you'd like to hang out for a little bit, I'm going to talk to Z. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you need to go, just let me know, and it's all up to you. Just to let everybody know, at the top of the hour, Things Network is coming back. My friends at Things Network, Nick, who has been an integral part of the PACT channel, is bringing back an episode of the Nick Files. We're going to be talking about some of the most haunted hospitals in the United States. So, something really cool. Nick did this 2 years ago when he did the most haunted army bases in the United States. Now he's going to take over for me for an hour, and he's going to do the most haunted hospitals in the United States as a tribute to all of our wonderful, wonderful first responders and healthcare workers. So stay tuned for that at the top of the hour. Mr. Z, brother, how you doing?
Couldn't be better, brother Zach. It's good to be here, and thank you for having me here. And it's nice to meet you, Anissa or Anissa.
Yeah, you obviously are a huge part of what we are able to do. You are the mastermind behind the website. You are the one who built and created and are constantly being asked to fix because I, I mess it up. It's like, hey, where'd it go? It's like it was there a minute ago. I don't know what the hell. I just pressed one button and it's gone. But you're the one who you know there I talk to nobody in my day more than I talk to you because I'm always asking for your help. But tell everybody what got you into doing websites.
I appreciate you asking, and you are definitely the mastermind of this whole idea of supporting our veterans, bringing people together in a community where you don't have to feel like you're alone. And it's always a pleasure to help out with your website because you gave me a chance where no one else gave me a chance, and I want to pay it forward with the community, pay it forward. Uh, and of course, there's a little bit of pride when you ask me to do something because I know you could do it yourself, but I think you call on me just to boost my confidence, just like you're boosting my confidence in knowing that we could spread the good word of our veterans that don't have to feel alone when they're going through their darkest moments. And we got Anissa helping them with their PTSD and TBI matters. And I just learned now about CPTSD. That's new for me. Never heard of it. You'll never know what you learn when you meet interesting people like here, and that's what I really like about being a part of the community. Pay it forward. You just meet interesting people. You learn new things, and brother Zach, I'll just say in front of millions of your followers and your audience, you help me reignite the importance of giving back to our veterans. Because if they have the courage to sacrifice their freedom for our freedom, why can we give it back? And to your original question with why I got into website development, everyone has the right to know information on a worldwide scale. But I don't want to promote my services, but I do want to mention Z World Cares if that's okay. Otherwise, I give you kudos to both of you, kudos, and everyone else who is watching to support our veterans because they could use all the support they need. When they come home, it's really hard for them to find jobs, get a loan, and feel quote normal again. A quick story: I had a conversation with a veteran, and he seemed a little bit melancholy. I won't say his name for confidential reasons. He said to me, and it really struck a chord with me. He said, "I'm in the last chapter of my life, and I don't know if tomorrow's going to be my last page." So it stuck with me, and I just want to bring that to your attention. Tomorrow's not guaranteed, but remember with all the things that you've done to make a difference. Uh, you can't live forever, but you can leave something behind, and that's the legacy that you're leaving, both of you and everyone here behind as well, to move forward with community pay it forward.
Z, and I've talked about this, and this is something that this is Ghost is here. Yeah, Ghost is here. So, but this is one of the days that I look forward to the most in the year, and that's because you get the stories that make you laugh. You get the stories that of triumph and of tragedy, and you get every emotion there is. And without a doubt, a couple hours ago, I got the story that broke me down a little bit, and it was a gentleman who suffered quite severely. And I asked him the question because you've heard me talk to John Vogels about, and you heard him as he said after the loss of his son, it was like having the worst heartburn that you just can't get rid of. It's like having the worst heartburn every day. It's that heaviness, it's that dread, it's that feeling of, just pain. And when I asked Thomas, if he could give anything comparable, and in this, I'd love to hear your side of this, and if some of the traumas that you went through, what he said was, just being in that dark place where you felt alone, even though you weren't alone, and you just kept asking yourself, you know, what did I do, or why did you do this, and why this is your fault. It was always a blame. It was always a blame for him that you did this, and that's what kept coming up in his head, and the survivor's guilt and all that other stuff that he had with the traumas that you've had and some of the things that you've had to go through. And I know it's probably a little unfair of me to ask you to put it into something that maybe people can understand. But what I'm trying to do is really bring out a point on what people feel when they're going through some of these things that, what, this could have been your last day.
When you find yourself in that dark place, you have to really look for what's going to get you out of this dark place. What is the one thing that you can focus on and have that be your shining light to help you find your way out? For me, it was my boys a lot of the time. I couldn't go anywhere because they needed me. So I think it's just really finding something and focusing in on it to help you through. My mat got me through. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my mat.
What was it that what was the decision to make you finally say, you know what, this is it, I'm healing, I'm tired of doing this? Not saying that there's not still residual there, but what was it that made you say, enough, I need to do something?
The first time I was raped, I went to talk therapy because I thought that that's what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And when I felt like I had a really good handle on it, I stopped. And then something would pop up and I would wind up going back into therapy. And I did this, this cycle and never got any real closure. And I found myself then several years later, many years later, in a yoga teacher training class for PTSD. And that's when I realized how PTSD had really crawled into the nooks and crannies of my life, and that the first person I needed to work on was right here, as opposed to being able to bring it out and help others. So after I finished all of these classes, I was actually raped again about 10 years ago. And after you get over the shock and the rawness of it, I sat down and I thought long and hard. Okay, I have some tools now. What would I say to a client? So I put on my clinician hat and, I thought about it and I said, all right, now I'm going to take that hat off and I'm going to be me and I'm going to get to work. And one of the things that I kept coming back to was, I feel great on my mat. And then I go back into talk therapy and I feel like crap again. There's got to be a better mousetrap at this point in time. I know you were in the last segment talking about Maury. Love Maury. Love what he does. I kind of went and started doing my own research. I guess this was about 3 years ago, because even my clients were coming up to me and saying, feel great when I come off the mat, but then I go into talk therapy and I feel like crap again. So I started doing some research and I came across a group of neurotechniques that, when woven together and used all together, have extraordinary success. And I became certified in them. And so I'm also doing that as well. And that is something that I can actually bring into some of the yoga. And, the brain is so amazing. And everyone is so unique with their own different types of trauma and how it affects them. There is more than one way to get to the bottom of this. Some people use yoga therapy. Some people use kickboxing. Some people use martial arts. Some people go for a run. It doesn't matter. As long as it's filling that need for you, do it. If the Mori approach is working for you, do it. If my approach works, my own neuro techniques, that's great. Do it. Just do something. And it's not a one size fits all.
Yep.
You are unique. You need to find your own little mix that works for you. Try again. You will find it, but you have to be willing to try and see what works best for you and your trauma.
I think it's very apparent that as alone as we feel at some times, as alone as people feel sometimes, like we're the only ones who are going through this situation, we're also alone when it comes to the ways that we're going to heal ourselves and we're going to get out of that, because you cannot listen to, yeah, my sister said that this would be the best thing in the world for me. Well, your sister might be able to suggest it, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work. Z, you've seen things, you've seen some of the most heartbreaking things as you tool around, the big city of New York and Long Island, and you see some of these things. And what are some of the things that have happened this year that just are you're really concerned about? Because we need to make sure that people are understanding how bad it is right now.
Well, before I comment on that, I just want to address what Anissa said. It's about focus, and you got to do something than just thinking and thinking about it constantly. And I know some people would say not doing something is doing something, but what you mentioned, this, it's good to find that physical therapy and yoga therapy. And I haven't done it myself, but just talking about it, not to sound judgmental, could cause more issues. But the fact you're using your body to go through the therapy, and I'm no expert in it, but I do have to say I agree with you with how can you express yourself of what's happened and to move forward and focus on moving forward. I'm not saying to move on, but at least you're doing something in a productive way that stretches your limits, just like yoga. When I used to commute in Manhattan, not Hoboken, I used to see a lot of houseless
Go
individuals.
Hogan.
is it Bohoken, Hoboken, hobo, like me. And while commuting in the subways or subway trains, I would notice there are Vietnam vets sleeping in the cold in the subways. It was frightening to see it because I didn't understand the horrors of what veterans go through when they come home broken instead of heroes. And one winter night, I'll never forget this, in 2016 or 17, I don't remember what year it was, but almost 10 years ago, I saw a veteran in the subway shivering in the subway, and no one even bothered to, make it feel warm. And it was a cold subway that day or that night. And it was frightening. That's all. And, I'm not saying I was traumatized, but if there's one houseless veteran living in subways or alleys or benches in Central Park or other places, uh, imagine where they are all over the world. And not to get political here, but there have been changes in the subway systems where they remove benches just to reduce the sad image of what's going on with the houselessness situation, if that's a word, houseless situation, what's going on. And there are certain ventilation systems in New York City, somewhere in Brooklyn and the Bronx, where they make it so curved and there's spikes, not spikes sticking out, but the metal parts, the ventilation systems are slanted, so that's very uncomfortable sleeping on those cold nights. And it just makes me think you have all this money, all the resources to make construction changes to avoid the appearance of having houselessness situations when we could use all those funds for homeless houseless veterans and people who are residents and veterans of this great country. And unfortunately, it's about the public image than our public priority of helping our veterans that are taking that stand. So those are the horrors I've been seeing. And again, don't mean to get into politics. Let's just remember those who have fought for us when those are not even in the battlefield.
Yeah, one of the things that I felt compelled to say earlier tonight was we see the problems. We know what the problems are. They're not locked away, they're not hidden, they're very apparent. Most people have an idea or two at an effective solution. Yet it seems like nothing is being done about a lot of the things that we probably should be a lot further on. Are Do you agree with that, Anissa? Does that sound right to you? Or am I thinking wrongly about this?
It would be great if we were further along.
Yeah.
What is it going to take? What has to change? What do we have to do?
That's the one thing that you just don't know, because we know what a solution or two would be. But of course, we're kind of in situations where, as just the average person out here, we can scream all day, why don't you do something and help these people? Yet their problem still keeps getting worse. And there's always an excuse. There's always excuses for everything. And meanwhile, we've got people who are dying and hurting themselves every day. And it's terribly sad.
Well, I think we have a choice. We can either wait for it to come from the top down and have our country do what they should do, stand up and take care of our vets, or we as a country need to take matters into our own hands and do what's right and take care of our vets the way the government doesn't seem to be able to do so. Again, not trying to get political.
Oh, that's just crazy talk. The government, they're great. Never mind. Um,
We have a choice.
yeah.
What are
Well,
we going to do?
it is time that we stop talking and we've got to start doing something. We've got to start making something happen. Talk can get a lot started, but it can't finish anything. We have to have action.
But if we all banded together, could you imagine what we could create, what we could accomplish?
Yes, you heard him. She loves this guy. I cannot get through a conversation with Mr. Z without her coming up. She just loves him. So,
I love Zephyr. She's a great girl.
but Anissa, I want to thank you so much for your donation, for your support. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can you please tell people one more time how to get a hold of you?
Well, first off, thank you for having me on. Finally, I apologize for the technological difficulties today. My goodness, Mr. Z, it was lovely to meet you. We need to chat, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I can
And
make that happen. Well,
okay,
I can make the introduction happen. I can't make you two talk. Like,
no, I get what you're saying, but he's in New York, so would you kindly have a piece of pizza and a bagel for me, please? I'm so homesick.
You know me, I always like pizzas, but I would like to have a piece of your time and learn more about who you are and what you do, and so see how we can come together without having to wait for the government. Because Zach Clayton 2028
yeah, no, uh,
Oh,
no.
wow.
or who that
Wow. That was just thrown out there. The gauntlet's been thrown. There you go.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
it'll be
Let's.
great.
I
All right.
don't. I don't think the world would be ready for that. But Anissa, thank you so very much. So,
I want a t-shirt with that on that.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Great stuff.
The you'd hear like a lot of heavy metal guitars for the national anthem, and that would just drive people nuts. So I like it. I heard a lot of good heavy metal guitar that did the national anthem, but I'm not sure.
May not be a
Again,
bad thing. May not be a bad thing. We
yeah,
could do that.
let me give it a little bit of nah. I don't think so. But um, I would love to debate some of these individuals, though. I would have a good time doing that. Um, I think I really would have a good time doing that. But Anissa, thank you again.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
very
Nice to meet
much.
you.
Y'all can find me at phoenixwomenhealing.com. All over the socials with that. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience, and I do appreciate it. You
You're
have
welcome.
a great night.
You too. Good night, gentlemen.
Good
Good night,
night,
Anissa. Keep doing the good work you're doing. Keep
You
on
too.
stretching.
Mr. Z. How do people get a hold of you, my fine friend?
My friend, and I'm going to let everyone know in front of your 18.7 million followers and audiences, we're not friends. We are brothers from another mother, and it takes two Z's or more to make things great because one more Z would make everyone fall asleep. But I know you're always never falling asleep because you're always putting your time and day for 22 hours to support our vets. And I do want to say it was very nice meeting Anissa, and I appreciate the introduction. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, please visit the communitypayitforward.us/, Z World Webs. And it's always good to be here, Brother Zach. And I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts about our ignored veterans who deserve a lot better than food stamps and paying just enough for government cheese.
Um, it is a damn shame, and it is something that needs to be fixed. And I think I think Nissa said it perfectly. we got to do something. We can't just sit around and watch it. We cannot sit and watch our heroes get ignored anymore. We have to do something. The numbers aren't getting any better, and the talk is getting louder, but nothing is getting done. So, brother man, I will see you next week. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for the teasing the Z thing there. I'm sitting there going, but I will be catching some Z's later on tonight, but it'll have nothing to do with my name, but or your name. So,
I think
but
that sounds like a plan, Mr. President. Thank
all
you.
right. Well, yeah, you can just stop that now. That ain't going nowhere. All right. Well, thank you, brother. I
Thank you,
appreciate
brother.
it. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hey, Nick, how you doing? Oh, you're on mute, my friend.
Sorry, I'm still trying to get used to this. Sorry, I'm still
Yeah.
trying to get used to this new program.
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit different. It is a little wacky, but you know what? We do with what we got, right? So, Nick, you did this for us 2 years ago, and it was so much fun. I asked you to please do it again because I really think that people get a kick out of it. So, yeah, oh, great. Here we go. We took some Z. Well, thanks, Jeremy. Oh, I can see this going some strange places. Nick's going to be doing his show. The camera's going to come back to me, and I'm going to be like drooling. I'll have that like keyboard face. So, but
And Jeremy to respond, he said I had 4 months to get used. Yeah, I know. I've still been trying to learn how to use it independently. Honestly, I mean it's a little bit tougher than StreamYard, but I'm trying to get to it.
yeah, StreamYard, they did one hell of a job on this. Nick, what do you got coming up for us on the Nick Files? You're going to take over for me for a little bit. Let me get up and stretch my fat legs and walk around like a wounded penguin, I think.
So what I got, I had to make some changes today. To be honest, this entire week I wasn't able to do a lot of it, but I actually did a majority of it today, in which I'm going to be presenting what was originally 10, but now 15 different haunted hospitals throughout the world. And in addition, to keep up with this, with 2 particular themes on this. One, I wanted to make this an international list, so it's going to not just be hospitals here in the United States. And in fact, 3 of them I was able to get help from, get this, from an investigator from Norway. So she was able to, yeah. So when I get to those, I got to throw the credit out for her and her crew for kind of in a way helping me out with this. And the other theme to keep up with is typical of what I do with Nick Files, is that although I do like to present a lot of the known location, like haunted locations that we all know, there are so many others out there that we just don't really know about.
Yeah.
So I focus on the lesser known locations.
Yeah. You got a fan already.
Yeah, there's Kate for you. And so I'll just even throw a quick example, basically. These lesser known, I mean, like, because I'm looking at focusing more on the lesser known locations, we're not going to see like familiar locations, like Waverly Hills Sanatorium or Allegheny. It's time to give these other locations spotlight. In fact, when you listen in to what I got to present, some of these locations, which are sanatoriums also, you would think to yourself, oh, that's just like the European version of Waverly in a way when you think about it very carefully. So it really took a lot of time, but it was totally worth the effort. But it's going to be different on locations throughout North America and Europe.
Well, you know what, Nick? I am going to let you take over the show. Have a great time. Thank you, my dear friend. Thank you for being part of the 2025 Mission for Healthy Heroes. You know what? You're doing a wonderful job. I'm looking forward to this. I'm going to go pop out, grab something to eat, and throw YouTube on the TV.
If you can just do me one quick favor just before I get started, is because again I haven't really done a share screen with my slideshows. So if you could just stick around for just a second, I just want to make sure that everybody can see the slideshows when I start. So I'm gonna click on that real quick.
Yep.
Okay, is it full screen? Can you see the title?
And oh, I don't want me up there. Is this how you want it?
Let's see here. Hold on. Let me see if I can go back. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for.
All right, so you just want yourself in the small square in the bottom.
Yeah, just me on the small square, and we're all set because that's usually how I've done it anyway.
You got it, brother. You know what? The show is all yours. Thank you, Nick. Again, thank you, Z. Have a great day. Have a great show. We will be watching. Once again, this is my good buddy Nick with the Nick Files back home here on the PACT channel and Things Network. So,
Yep. It's
Nick,
great to be back doing this again. I gotta say.
well, we're glad to have you back. But, Nick, it's all you, brother. Take it away.
All right, here we go. So as I just mentioned, it's been a long I gotta first say it's great to be, like I just said, it's great to be doing the Nick Files again after a very long hiatus I've had to take. But for tonight, I got a very special collection of locations that I'm pretty sure most of you guys are probably not going to know about. So this is going to be a really interesting slideshow. And this was originally a top 10, but I had to extend it to 15 because I was getting some additional help of some other suggestive locations. So I hope you guys enjoy this. And why don't we, with that being said, let's begin. So we'll start. Okay, I forgot about the title. It's been a crazy day for me. So here we go. The top 15 haunted hospitals. So we start off with number 15, Charles George VA Hospital. Now here's the thing about the slideshow. Originally, I was going to try to focus on just VA hospitals since this is obviously involving veterans. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to find a lot of VA hospitals that were rumored to be haunted. I mean, there were plenty of them that were historic that I could have added, but I wanted to keep up with the paranormal theme of it. So this was only one of a few I was able to actually find that was said to be haunted. So, but moving forward with this, here's the first question for you. Ever wondered how haunted an old hospital building might be? Of course, there are plenty of them across the country, if not the world. Yet, one part of the old Charles George VA Hospital in Asheville, North Carolina, is so haunted that those who had dared to visit the old number 9 building can tell tales of terror that can rival any ghost story anyone may have ever heard of. The Charles George VA Hospital was originally known as a national hospital. It was constructed on March 3rd, 1865. Ironically, the hospital had been constructed in the final month of the American Civil War. The Battle of Asheville would soon occur across the following month. This hospital was built, believe it or not, at the request of President Abraham Lincoln as the first ever national hospital for military members who were injured and were looking for a place of, I always have trouble sometimes with these words, whatever that word is. I'm just going to butcher if I say it. This set the stage for what is known as the VA health care facilities that now operate across the nation today. So even though, again, I wasn't able to find a lot of haunted VA hospitals, with the exception of this one and a few, it's quite interesting that this was the one that really started it all when it came to hospitals caring for veterans, which I think is just amazing. Civilian medical personnel would be assigned to work with veterans for medical care. Already there had been homes in similar settings operated by both the U.S. Army and U.S. Navy. Both of the homes were rather small, and each had a capacity to handle up to 300 residents at a time. However, the national homes that Lincoln had intended to open would handle more than thousands of military members and veterans. These military homes were only open to Union Civil War vets, including colored veterans, which, North Carolina being part of the southern states, certainly something not often seen during that era. Following the opening of the National Hospital, another national hospital was opened the following year in Maine. The home was then renamed the Charles George VA Hospital in the 1950s in honor of Charles George, a Medal of Honor recipient that was killed during the Korean War. Building number 9 contained the residential quarters for nurses working at the hospital. The building was in use from 1930 to 1967, so for well over a good 40 years. Some have told alternative stories that the building was used as a sanitarium. Many of the former hospital employees denied any rumors or reports of the building being used for anything other than a nurse's dormitory. The new Charles George VA Hospital began construction in 1967, leading to the subsequent shutdown of the old facility when it opened 3 years later. For more than 50 years, building number 9 stood there, and the condition worsened over time, which is not surprising when it comes to these abandoned buildings. It has sustained numerous amounts of vandalism, and part of the building was damaged by a fire. But when it comes as far as paranormal activity is concerned, well, before even that began, in 1990, the building had been used as a place to set up a haunted house by a local company that was doing it for a fundraiser. However, there have been safety concerns because of the amount of asbestos that was left behind, and further posing a health risk for the visitors. Even paranormal investigators had eschewed the idea of going inside the building until it was free from the harmful material, which is definitely a smart idea. Despite the building facing all kinds of damage and neglect, it still held up strong since its closure and abandonment. But it soon became a place where many thrill seekers and trespassers would break into just for the fun of it. As I always like to say when it comes to these abandoned locations, I urge any paranormal, because there are a few investigators that are known to do this. The investigators who do this, as well as all the thrill seekers, legend trippers, I urge you all, never trespass. Not only is it illegal, but it's also very dangerous. If you intend to investigate or try to explore one of these locations, the best thing I can tell you is just get permission from the owner, from the state, or even from your local law enforcement. Please don't trespass. But anyways, they would break in just for the fun of it, but for what reason? Some say it's a place to tag with spray paint, while others heard of possible ghost stories about the abandoned hospital, especially the now famous number 9 building where rumors had started to swirl since the old hospital shut down. It was unclear when the hauntings had started, which something tells me I'm sure this place, typical of any hospital, it was probably already haunted even during its operating days. I mean, it's never unusual for a hospital to be haunted after it's been abandoned. I'm sure the haunting started at a much earlier time period. But it also became a secret hangout spot for teenagers back in the 1970s and 80s. Even when the building began to deteriorate, unfortunately, many ignored orders of trespassing on the property. Those who have visited when it was a haunted house or just as an abandoned building can tell the same stories over and over again. One of the apparent activities that were said to be reported was the presence of random cold spots. Some had even reported the feeling of being pushed or grabbed by some kind of entity. Others who had visited the abandoned building would hear yells and screams. Even some past visitors left the building not only terrified, but leaving with mysterious scratches. These hauntings were said, okay, so it does say, even though it's unclear when they started, these hauntings were said to be dated as far back as the late 1980s and early 1990s. Oh, I forgot to add a fade in for this one. So this now goes to number 14. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to say this correctly because this is actually in French. Kate, if you're still watching, you might be able to pronounce this better than I could. The Hospital Psychiatrique Maison Blanche, which I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly more in English. But the Maison Blanche is a locality in the commune of Neuilly-sur-Marne, France. So this is what I meant. I wanted to go even further. than just the U.S. in this case. So I just want to say I always apologize in advance if I butcher some of these town names or these certain historical figure names. But this is located in France, that housed a hospital built in the 1890s and located at 3 Avenue June Jaurès. Again, I'm sorry. It was part of the Ville Evard estate and included a psychiatric hospital, a nursing school, a military hospital, an alcoholic asylum, and a sanatorium. The hospital was in operation, really, it started from 1878 up till 1997. But the building itself had been around for, did operate on its own for well over 100 years. During that time, it housed thousands of patients, many of whom were said to have been treated inhumanely, which is unfortunately, not uncommon. On July 6, 1894, the General Council voted to construct a new insane asylum. The architect, Georges Albert Morin Gustau, won a competition with this project. The main building was built in the shape of Louis I'm never good with these Roman numbers, castles. The hospital opened on July 1st, 1900, with a park, a vegetable garden, greenhouses and its gardeners, a large laundry and its laundresses, as well as a team of firefighters. The asylum housed 630 patients and employed 144 staff members, though the institution could accommodate up to 3,200 patients. Okay, so it's kind of, I think it's kind of, let me see here for a sec. Oh, okay, never mind. I thought it was repeated information. It's part of the Ville Evard estate owned by Madame Veuve de Rochetailleur and her son. It was the Great Asylum era. Okay, yeah, I was missing okay, I missed a picture there, but at least it showed up in the end. Actually, that's the same picture. Okay, so I guess it didn't really matter. During the First World War, the hospital evacuated patients to other facilities and converted into a military hospital. After the war, it resumed its role as a psychiatric asylum. In the 1930s, Maison Blanche expanded with numerous new buildings, effectively becoming a small town. And this was one of the few pictures I was able to find of the interior of the hospital. I was searching for, to be honest, I was searching for a lot of these pictures for earlier today. So this was quite the search. And there are going to be some of these locations where I don't have any pictures at all. So I can only show what I can get. But this was a relatively rare picture of the interior of it. But after the Second World War, additional pavilions were added to the existing ones, resulting in a total of 5,000 jobs. In 1970, with the Maison Blanche sector psychiatry, it took charge of the 10th arrondissement, however the hell you say that word, the 3 sectors of the 18th arrondissement, and the 2 sectors of the 19th arrondissement of Paris. By 1971, the establishment had 8 sections, accommodating 2,125 sick adult women and 1,200 men. Since January 1st, 2019, the establishment has been part of the Parapsychiatry and Neurosciences University Hospital Group, alongside the Santé and Hospital Center and the Père Vaucluse Public Health Group. To date, the hospital welcomes the populations of the northeast of Paris, 8th, 9th, 10th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th arrondissements of Paris. Now, although there are some parts of it that are still in kind of partial operation, for the most part, it's been abandoned. So due to its history, the abandoned hospital is often associated with stories of hauntings and strange occurrences. Visitors to the site have claimed to feel uneasy, as though they are being watched. Strange noises and cold spots are also common. Some have even claimed to have to see ghostly apparitions or feel a presence with them while in the hospital. There have been stories of patients being seen wandering the hallways and eerie laughter and screams echoing through the empty buildings. Whoops, that was something I didn't mean to say Riverview Hospital. That was another location that was given to me while I was on the phone. I forgot to get rid of it. Anyways, now to number 13, to the Belvoir Park Hospital. Just want to let me just take a quick look on the comments real quick. It would look, okay, Jeremy said it would look like be the same as Psych. Yeah, pretty much it would. Lewis 13. Okay. Anyways, the Belvoir Park Hospital. Now, this was regarded as one of the most haunted places in Belfast, Northern Ireland. The slew of buildings are still filled with patient beds, surgery curtains, and medical documents from its life as a hospital from the early 1900s to 2006. The hospital, which was designed by Young and Mackenzie, opened as the Purdy'sburn Fever Hospital in 1906. The facility then became known as Montgomery House in 1953, and it then became Belvoir Park Hospital in the 1960s. The hospital became the main regional center for oncology, offering radiotherapy and chemotherapy treatments, and in 1983, the hospital was the first in the province to take delivery of a CAT scanner. Friends of Montgomery House, a charity founded by Dr. Gerald Lynch to help cancer sufferers and their families, was established in 1984. And the hospital's Gerald Lynch Center held many cancer support groups in order to aid both okay, yeah, I guess, never mind. In order to aid both sufferers and their families as well. Now, after services had been transferred to Belfast City Hospital, the hospital closed in March of 2006. But interestingly, unlike most of these hospitals that usually were abandoned and suffered neglect and I'm sorry, I lost the word I was looking for. Suffered neglect and and vandalism. There we go. I'm sorry. I don't know why that left me for a second. It was kept intact in order to serve as an isolation center in the event of an outbreak of infectious disease. In June 2014, the site was sold to a private developer known as the Neptune Group. Neptune Group have since restored some of the original buildings to function as modern townhouses, and the first show homes were opened in June 2017. Now, of course, despite being in great shape, still, security was brought on site in order to protect the building. But pretty soon, the guards started to report strange shadows moving across the building. The guards are never able to catch them. However, what is more disturbing is that they also started to find small shrines around the grounds, especially close to the stream. They have also been discovering unsettling mutilated animal corpses intermittently, which that's obviously creepy enough even without the paranormal stories. Anyways, going next, number 12 at the Institut Universitaire and Santé Mentale de Montreal. So I think you guys get the idea of where this one's going to be next. In the Institut Universitaire and Santé Mentale de Montreal, the ISUMM, located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, opened in 1873 under the name Isle Hospice Saint Jean du Douai, if I'm saying that correctly. I don't know my French too well. It has been designated. No, wait, that's the. Okay, yeah, I guess it was. Okay, it has been designated as Isle de Longue Pointe, the name of the place. It has had many names, including the hospital. Okay, so it's. Okay, yeah, same name. And the hospital Louis H. Lafontaine. Okay. A former mental hospital in Montreal. Now, a former mental hospital in Montreal that is said to be one of the most evil places on the island. At its opening, the asylum was a huge complex. It contained 79 private rooms, 27 rooms, 2 infirmaries, 23 dining rooms, 51 bedrooms, 150 cells, and 1 kitchen with 2 floors and 5 pantries. Again, another rare image I was able to find the inside of it. Approximately 400 mental patients were housed there in its early years. With locked doors and bars on the window, it was nearly impossible to escape. Due to the stigma and taboos of the era, the vast majority of the patients were forgotten by their families and thus rarely or never received visitors, which is always the very sad part about these locations is how, these were always the type of location that, and I spoke about this in fact about a year or so ago when it came to Pennhurst and near in Spring City, Pennsylvania. It was just the same message saying that it was just best just send your family member to this particular location and just practically get on with your life. I'm going to switch lights here because I forgot I had this light right here, so I think it will have a better picture on myself. Just yep, this is much better. Okay, let me see here. Going back, John is pronounced like Sean. Okay, very close to John. Actually, be John. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you helping me out by the way on this, Jeremy. Thank you. Um, okay, yeah. So, anyways, continuing onwards. This resulted in a lifetime of social isolation for patients and ultimately their deaths at the hospital. Furthermore, the bodies of deceased patients usually went unclaimed. The law provided the Sisters of Providence to hand over the cadavers within 24 hours to the provincial inspector of anatomy. Indeed, the mental hospitals provided the main source of human corpses for dissection at medical schools within Quebec, which I will say I actually did find at least 2 pictures involving the dissections, but I was not going to, considering the subject matter, I was not going to add those pictures because I thought they were a little too graphic to show on the slideshow. So, but there are at least 2 photos that were taken at the institution when they were doing these dissections. Saint John du Douai, again, I'm sorry, also suffered from serious overcrowding and struggled to meet the needs of its mental patients. Many were rarely seen by a doctor following incarceration, which makes the situation even more sadder. It's like once you've been institutionalized, you are pretty much on your own. Just over 30% of patients released from the facility were considered cured, improved, or even stable. By 1890, St. John de Dieu Hospital had grown to include 1,297 patients, along with 67 sisters and 100 nurses in the main building. Unfortunately, if the conditions were not bad enough, a terrible fire broke out in the institution on May 6th. The inferno raged for most of the day and almost completely destroyed the entire hospital. In all, a total of 86 people were burned alive, mostly female patients. So, okay, the pictures were supposed to show up, but now they are. So I can't even imagine how horrible it must have been for these patients. Very horrible way to die. And if I'm thinking correctly, I decided to make an exception. That is an actual picture from the aftermath of the fire, and those bags, I truly believe, were that of bodies of the patients that were burned. So it was a terrible event. I'm sure at that time it was, if I'm thinking correctly, although I didn't find this on any of the websites, this was probably one of the largest fires to affect a hospital in Canadian history at that time. Now, in its May 18th edition, the Dominion Illustrated reported that the sight that met the eyes of both sane and insane was a terrible one. There were still people in the burning central and adjoining sections of the building. Some of them could be seen as they stood clasping the iron bars of the windows in their hands and rending the air with demoniacal shouts and cries, laughing, cursing, entreating, and praying, singing chorus rebelled songs, gazing vacantly at the excited multitude below them, making vain endeavors to wrest the heavy iron bars from the windows. Careless and indifferent, eager and hopeful, they furnished a strange and vivid spectacle. It would take a full day to rebuild the institution with an even larger design than the original. This included Okay, the pictures again were supposed to show up. So I'm just, yeah, here we go. This included a train line that connected the hospital to the rail network. In June 1898, the hospital acquired a pass. Okay, this is when it was supposed to show up. Okay, I have this correctly. In June 1898, the hospital acquired a passenger rail car and 2 cars for merchandise, and the system was launched. The new design also included a system of indoor trolleys that rolled on tracks through large hallways and connected the various pavilions of the hospital. The poet Emily Nelligan, I don't know if that's, apparently she was a well known uh, poet in her days. If you guys know who she is or not, she resided in the hospital from 1925 to 1941. At its highest population, the asylum had hosted up to 5,000 patients. However, unfortunately, it just seemed like history repeated itself once again because another deadly fire broke out on Saturday, November 9th, 1935, in one of the wings at the St. John de Duel insane asylum. Unfortunately, I couldn't find out how many actually fully died from the event. Again, finding the information was relatively limited. But according to the November 11th, 1935 issue of Reading Eagle, hospital officials said the cause of the conflagration probably would never be discovered. Firemen expressed the theory a pyromaniac inmate was responsible, but conceded that they face an almost hopeless task in confirming this theory. The column continued. 4 violently insane inmates were burned to death after the fire broke out late Saturday night when they eluded their guards and crept back to their cells in the blazing building. Another inmate died from heart disease. So at least there were 5 who died, but I just couldn't find the full number. Allegedly, the nuns in that case attempted to avoid an investigation on the basis that the hospital formed a separate municipality. Indeed, Gamlin had its own police and firefighters, even though there were no permanent residents apart from the incarcerated mental patients. As the years pass, the hospital will continue to experience more problems, many of them extremely deranged, shocking, and almost unbelievable. Another rare picture I was able to find of during when it was in its operation days, which goes to show the type of inmates they were accepting. With technological advances, electroshock therapy was invented in Italy in 1938 and quickly spread to other mental institutions, obviously to different countries, and Canada was no exception. Now, additionally, from 1935 to 1964, thousands of orphan children were abandoned or entrusted to the state by a parent or other numerous members of their family. These orphans were raised in facilities like nurseries, orphanages, or psychiatric hospitals ran by Catholic congregations. They were called the Duplessis orphans because the premier of Quebec at the time, Maury Duplessis, reclassified the children as mental patients and sent them to psychiatric asylums solely to per child subsidy from the federal government. In 1975, the St. John de Duel Insane Asylum took the name of Louis Hippolyte Lafontaine Hospital. In 2013, it was rebranded with its modern name, the Institut Université in Santé Mentale de Montréal. In 1976, okay, I got something mixed up here. Okay, so that was supposed to show up afterwards. In 1976, Hospital St. Jean de Dieu became the Hospital Louis H. Lafontaine. Oh, wait, this is the same stuff again. Okay. The number has declined since the 1980s, and some wings were closed. On October 14, 2011, Hospital Louis H. Lafontaine is designated as a mental university institute. Okay, yeah, now it's just repeating some of the information. Again, I was in a rush getting some of this done, so I don't mind the repeated information. But anyways, the Institute Université in Santé Mentale de Montréal has a history of hauntings and is considered one of the most haunted places in Montreal. Apparitions of former patients in old gowns have been seen along with disembodied voices and phantom footsteps echoing in empty corridors. In addition, buzzers going off in empty rooms, floating orbs and flickering lights are a frequent phenomenon. Oh, forgot to fade in with this one. Okay, so anyways, moving down to number 11, Sunnyside Royal Hospital. As one of the oldest psychiatric facilities on this list and the oldest in Scotland, one might think this abandoned hospital is completely decrepit, but the reality is quite the opposite. The building has been maintained quite well, leaving ghost hunters and urban explorers with a treasure trove of wallpapers and old school architecture. After its opening in 1781 by Susan Garner, okay, now the pictures are showing up. After its opening in 1781 by Susan Carnegie as Montrose Lunatic Asylum, Infirmary and Dispensary, it obtained a royal charter in 1810. The original building was situated on the Montrose Links on a site bounded by Barrack Road, Ferry Road, and Garrison Road. In 1834, the governors of the asylum, carrying out the wishes of Mrs. Carnegie, who had strongly advocated the appointment of a medical specialist in insanity, appointed the phrenologist William A. F. Brown as medical superintendent. Brown was to prove an inspired choice and an energetic and resourceful leader. He regarded public education as part of his duties and gave a series of lectures which became enormously popular and influential. In 1858, a new improved asylum designed by William Lambie Moffett was completed to the north of Montrose in the village of Hillside on lands on the farm of Sunnyside, and the old site was vacated. This site was further developed with the construction of a new facility for private patients called Carnegie House in 1899. Despite this addition, overcrowding was a problem as the asylum's patient numbers had grown to 670 by 1900. This situation required additional building work to be undertaken. Consequently, two new buildings, Howden Villa 1901 and Northesk Villa 1904, were added to the facility. Additional staff were required to care for the additional patients, and the Westmont cottages were built in 1905 to house them. In 1911, the lease of Sunny Farm finally expired, and over 52 acres were purchased for the sum of £4,500, if I'm thinking correctly. A further development was the addition of Angus House, which was built to accommodate elderly patients suffering from dementia in 1939. In 1948, the National Health Service 1946 Scotland Act brought the hospital under the control of the Eastern Regional Hospital Board. Its name was changed from the Royal Asylum of Montrose to the Royal Mental Hospital of Montrose. It changed hands several times before becoming Sunnyside Royal Hospital in 1962 and came under the jurisdiction of new management. During the 1950s and 60s, the introduction of new drugs lessened the need for prolonged admission of patients. In addition, the Mental Health Scotland Act of 1960 also significantly altered legislation in respect of mental illness and reduced the hospital grounds on which someone could be detained in a mental hospital. After the introduction of care in the community in the early 1980s, the hospital went into a period of decline, and once patients had been transferred to the Susan Carnegie Center at Stracathro Hospital, Sunnyside Royal Hospital closed in December 2011. Before the asylum's demolition in 2019, ghost hunters were warned from visiting today due to rampant asbestos. Now, the place is now home to what's known as Sunnyside Estate, where luxury flats will fill the old hospital buildings and houses will be erected around the property. In common with other abandoned buildings, the complex became the target of criminals, and much copper and other material was robbed on the upper floors. The place also attracted other unauthorized visitors, including various official and amateur investigators who heard that the hospital was haunted. Whether this rumor of haunting was inspired by its history or dereliction, at least one ex-patient advised the place was haunted by the sound of female footsteps. One Arbroath-based paranormal team, After Dark, refused permission to enter when they asked, on the basis that the buildings were too run down to ensure physical safety. Now, despite its past as a hospital for the mentally ill and its high potential for hauntings, the builders intend on returning the property to its former glory. I know for the most part, most of the old buildings, as I said, were torn down, but I did see that I think, if I'm thinking correctly, this might be the only, this, at which is, I believe, the administration building. This, I believe, is the only known building from the Sunnyside Royal Hospital that's still standing to this day. Everything else has pretty much been torn down. Before I get to the next one, I just want to look at the comments real quick. You see here. Oh, I forgot. I can't click on the comments this time. Pickle Tom! Well, you're a trooper for getting through those words. I'd probably given up by this point. Yeah, you're definitely right, Jeremy. Okay, so now getting to number 10, Hospital Juarez. So this was actually the very last one I had to put onto the slideshow. In Mexico, the Juarez Hospital is one of the most important health institutions in the history of Mexico. It is considered the cradle of surgery in Mexico, in addition to having served in several war events for the care of the wounded. It has two headquarters. Oh, whoops, sorry, that was my fault. The Juarez del Centro Hospital, the oldest, partially destroyed by the earthquakes of 1985 and later rebuilt, located in La Merced, and the historic center of Mexico City, and the Juarez de Mexico Hospital, built after the earthquakes of 1985, located in the northern area of Mexico City on the National Polytechnic Institute Avenue and the Gustavo A. Madero Mayor's office. Okay, so these pictures were not supposed to show up, but we'll worry about that later. In the 1847 war with the United States, it was necessary to have what was known as blood hospitals to attend to the wounded. With this purpose in mind, General Manuel Maria Lombardini, which was this picture right here on the left, placed at the disposal of the Consular of Hospitals of the Metropolitan City Council of the capital of Mexico, Mr. Jose Urbano Fonseca, which is him right here on the right, the building of the Colegio de los Agostinos de San Pablo, which until then functioned as a barracks. It was then called St. Paul's Hospital. On August 23rd of that year, after the battles of Paderna and Churubusco that occurred 3 days earlier, is considered the date of foundation of the hospital, since it is the first day that wounded soldiers were admitted, who were the first patients of the institution. The Sisters of Charity, who took over the management of the establishment, were in charge of caring for the sick. Sister Michaela Ayanz, I don't know if I'm saying that right, was the first director from 1847 to 1869, and the first doctors were Don Ladisolo de la Pascua, priest of the Temple of San Pablo el Viejo, Don Guillermo Santa Maria, a doctor of the same church and a practitioner. It was designed as a municipal hospital and was initially equipped with 60 beds for free patients. Subsequently, in the 19th century, it was used as a clinical field for teaching and provided corpses to the School of Medical Sciences. With the War of Reform, it was again required to help the wounded, and during the French intervention in 1863, it again served to attend war combatants, although this time not only Mexicans, but also the French. Faced with the death of the Benemario de las Americas Benito Juarez on July 18, 1872, the then Councilor of Mexico City, Garcia Lopez, proposed that the San Pablo Hospital changed its name to the Juarez Hospital, which the City Council approved the following day on July 19th. In 1874, the Sisters of Charity and Sister Michaela Añez, I think that's how I'm supposed to say it right, returned to Europe, leaving the Juarez Hospital without their important support. In 1881, An important remodeling was carried out that included the creation of several rooms that expanded the services that the Juarez Hospital provided to the population. During the tragic decade, um, I don't know, there might have been someone I might have missed, but okay, somebody received wounded and hundreds of corpses to be incinerated. Okay, so then in 1947, the Juarez Hospital celebrated its first century of life. So part of the celebrations included a major remodeling and construction of new buildings. In 1970, a new centenary of the cloister, it was remodeled again and resuming the original appearance of the convent, and facilities were built to house the outpatient services, general services, hospitalization tower, teaching unit, governing body, experimental surgery, and clinical research, and doctor's residence. The 1985 earthquake in Mexico, which the hardest hit obviously was Mexico City, toppled one of the hospital's buildings, leaving countless victims among medical staff, administrative staff, patients, and visitors. The government of the Republic allocated funds to the Ministry of Health of Mexico to build new facilities since the San Pablo building was disabled for such functions. While the new headquarters was being built, it was divided into 4 units in different areas of the city, Juarez 1 to Juarez 4 until September 1989, when the new home of the Juarez Hospital was inaugurated. Whoops. Okay, so that was, I don't mean to kind of go to a cut, but that was honestly as much history I was able to find on the hospital Juarez. So let's get right to the supposed story. Legend that's associated with this hospital. This picture wasn't supposed to show up right now, but well, it doesn't matter. La Plancheta, interestingly, is an urban legend from Mexico City. She is the ghost of a nurse that originally haunted the hospital Juarez, but in modern times has now been spotted, get this, in hospitals all across the city, all across Mexico City. Her origin is murky in that there is no clear story that one can point to. Now, if I'm thinking correctly, even though her origin is kind of up in the air, when I found this picture, supposedly this was actually supposed to be her. And based on the attire and the time this photo was taken, I'm going to assume this most likely was taken back somewhere around the 1920s, early 1930s, maybe late 1910s. So somewhere around that period. Just before I get to the next one, let's see real quick. Thank you, Kate. Well, ain't no party like a Nick Files party. All right, before I get to number 9, because I've been doing a lot of talking now for a while, I need a quick drink. Okay, so now, and I should have told Zach this. Now we focus on a location back here in the U.S. that's within Zach and Adrian's state, not too far from them, in fact. Which goes to number 9, Denver Veterans Administration Medical Center. Let's see here. The Denver Veterans Administration VA Medical Center, another veterans hospital, located in Denver, Colorado, was built in 1948 and opened in 1951. Excuse me. The facility consisted of a large hospital building, Building A, which is the photo that you see right here, and approximately 15 support buildings and structures. The DVAMC, which changed over time to meet evolving medical care requirements and technologies, was the primary VA facility in Colorado for over 50 years. 2 major policies shaped post-war VA hospital construction. New VA hospitals were constructed in urban areas and affiliated with medical schools. This was a significant change for the decades-long policy that emphasized the construction of hospitals in rural areas and independence from other healthcare facilities. Post-war VA hospitals were also constructed based on standard designs developed by VA architects. The DVAMC met all of these conditions. The VA built the DVA-MC in the well-established Hale neighborhood within the city's urban core and adjacent to Colorado Boulevard, a state highway. Construction of the hospital completed the infill of the neighborhood and allowed the facility to serve the city's veteran population, which had grown exponentially after the war. Moreover, the medical center was located between two existing medical complexes. The University of Colorado Hospital Medical School bordered the DVA-MC to the west. The association with the medical school was vitally important to the Veterans Administration's post-war vision in which the agency worked cooperatively with medical schools. Another hospital, the Rose Medical Center, was east of the DVA-MC. The three medical institutions created a large area that was dedicated to cooperative medical care and instruction. In the early 2000s, the DVA-MC couldn't provide the most effective care to patients, and we're also doing 1,500 non-emergent surgeries monthly. Therefore, the place shut down was bought by the government for $41.2 million. As a result, the relationship between the Denver hospitals continued during that era when the University of Colorado and VA began transferring their operations east to new facilities on the former site of the Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center in Aurora, where they have continued their collaborative relationship. A new hospital, the Rocky Mountain Regional VA Medical Center, opened in 2019. Most VA operations are based out of this new campus. The Rose Medical Center remains in its original location, as you can see in this picture. Well, not necessarily this picture, but the additional hospital. Now, although it's been closed down, the hospital most likely consists of 12 floors, maybe more. Maybe more. One can locate the ORs on the 8th floor. It is also believed, but one can find a couple of X-rays on the floor on the 4th floor. Excuse me. Now, the place is old, so most of the doors and windows welded and boarded shut. Get this, with evidence tape on them instead of, typical, nails and boards. Now, it's not surprising. Some say the old Denver VA hospital has been the site of strange experiences, including hearing screams and bangs at night. Now, I should have mentioned this before. Some of these hot locations that I have provided. Oh, Zach, I hear you.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I just wanted to pop in here real quick, and I'm going to say after seeing that last one, I hear road trip here coming real quick.
I kind of figured.
Yeah, so that looks great. I'm looking it up right now. I've never seen that place, and I've lived here for 30 some years in this area, and I never knew that was there. So Nick, really good job, buddy. Keep going, my friend. Keep going.
My absolute pleasure. See, this is why I like focusing on the lesser known locations out there. That's what makes this, that's what I love about these slideshows.
Yeah. Well, keep going, kiddo. I'm liking this, loving it, and a lot of people are glad you're doing it and glad you're back.
Definitely. Thank you. Anyways, moving forward now to number 8, which is the Northern State Hospital. A little mistyped there, but no big deal. Yeah, okay, it's not a big deal at all. Anyways, this hospital in Cedro Woolley, Washington, was commissioned in 1909 in response to the overcrowding at the Western State Hospital in Steilacoom. The construction of the hospital was suggested by Dr. Arthur P. Calhoun, who was the superintendent of Western State from 1906 to 1914. The buildings were designed by Seattle architects Saunders and Lawton, using the Spanish colonial revival style. The grounds were designed by the Olmsted Brothers landscape architecture firm. The hospital was built to serve those who were found to be insane under the superior courts of Clallam Island, Jefferson, King, Kitsap, San Juan, Saget, and Snohomish counties. I think I'm saying that right. The hospital initially started out with 100 patients that were transferred from Western State. all of those being male. These patients helped with the construction of the hospital. Okay, another picture that was supposed to fade, no big deal. In 1913, 4 more ward buildings were commissioned to house patients. By 1915, the hospital held around 485 patients. At this time, the hospital's population remained fairly stagnant as it was treated as a branch of Western State. This was changed in the same year with legislator approved for the hospital to receive patients from outside of Western State. Previously, the hospital only held transfer patients. In response to this change, an expansion of the hospital was commissioned and granted to the architects Heath and Grove of Tacoma. The new buildings opened on the main campus included the men and women's receiving buildings, an assembly hall, and a laundry. The expansion of the farm section of the campus included also a cow barn, a horse barn, a hay barn, a milk house, and an implement house. This expansion allowed for an additional 200 patients. By 1917, the hospital consisted of 10 buildings and held about 750 patients. 70 staff were employed at the hospital, with 46 of those being attendants. The patient to attendant ratio was 1 to 16. Due to rising population, a new male ward was constructed and another wing was added to the already existing female ward. A powerhouse, stack boiler, and automatic stokers were also built. Improvements were also made to the heating and lighting. This expansion was proposed in 1917, but this was delayed due to World War I, with the buildings being completed in 1919. In 1921, another male ward was constructed with room for 49 patients. 2 more stokers were also built that same year. In 1922, there were reportedly 1,084 patients. The hospital was closed in 1973 under the direction of Governor Dan Evans due to state budget cuts. The last patients left the hospital on that year of August 16th. The closure led, unfortunately, to the loss of 500 jobs by hospital staff. The remaining patients were transferred to Western State Hospital, while others were released to the general public. Now, sadly, in spite of in spite of probably getting some of the care that they needed, still, countless patients perished at Northern State. Rarely were the bodies claimed by families, and so their disposal was left to the state. Those who were known to be Protestant were cremated in an on-site furnace. Hundreds of these cremains, or excuse me, I'm sorry, not cremains, okay, were later found, get this, in tin cans bearing their patient numbers. Rumors say that the remains were packaged in the hospital's canning facility by other patients. Most patients, however, were buried in the asylum's 1.5 acre plot. According to hospital records, 1,487 bodies are buried on the grounds of the asylum. While the graves once did bear the names of those below ground, the swampy soil has caused the majority of the headstones to retreat into the ground, leaving the bodies of the dead totally unnamed. So they've practically been exposed to the elements. Efforts are currently underway to exhume the bodies, identify them, and give them a proper burial. Whoops. Okay, here we go. For a second, I forgot to take out mental state. It was supposed to be just Northern State Hospital. With so much suffering, death, and disregard for human life, the abandoned land is crawling with reports of strange happenings. Most of those who were admitted, unfortunately, weren't actually suffering from severe mental illness and were sent to the asylum to live out the rest of their lives under lock and key. Although again, I was able to find that there wasn't as much negativity like you'd see in a lot of these other hospitals, there were still rumors that they were likely experimented on, perished in the hospital, and buried or cremated right on site. It's hard to believe that these would be happy spirits. Those who dare visit the asylum grounds report strange phenomena such as cold spots, the feeling of being watched, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being touched. Some have seen strange shadows darting around the graveyard. The most commonly encountered entity is that of a young girl with a red ball and a man chasing after her. They've been seen running about the property, though some report the girl standing alone in the graveyard as well. Just before we get to the next one, whoops. Okay, let me just see. Okay, my eyes are growing very happy. All right, thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate it. You have a great night. Take care. So now, moving forward to number 7, what's known as the Pool Park Asylum. This is first one. Yep, that's exactly what I figure where it was. Located in the small village of Clondenwood in North Wales, this former mental hospital hasn't housed patients since 1989. The circa 30-acre plot was the site of a substantial hall and farm, which became dilapidated, but a manor house dating back to 1824, so 200 years almost, exact, along with a coaching house, neighboring boiler block, and lodge house remain on site. The manor, complete with a beautiful staircase and intricate details, was a family home in the 1800s, before it was accommodated overflow of patients from Denbit Insane Asylum in the 30s and 40s. The estate of Pool Park, spelled park in Welsh, began as a deer park for the nearby Ruthin Castle. Following its time as a hunting ground, the property was passed between a series of wealthy landowners. The elegant mock Tudor style manor house that still stands today was constructed in 1862 for the second Lord Bagot, which is this is obviously one of the earliest pictures I was able to find of this. In 1937, the house was sold to the North Wales County's Mental Hospital, which was in need of a second location to house overflow patients from the nearby Denbit Insane Asylum. Pool Park held 87 patients at capacity, but in times of need had as many as 120. For a brief stint of time during World War II, the grounds also held a prisoner of war camp. It later became an asylum before closing in the 1980s. It had stood empty since then and became popular with ghost hunters. Today, the solid wooden floors and intricate wood paneling have rotted due to water damage. The house had been looted for lead and copper, and its ceilings are dripping water and shedding plaster. One will be pressed hard to find an intact window. However, a beautiful old staircase still remains, spilling down 2 flights of stairs into a grand entrance hall, a real pleasure despite the debris. Paranormal investigator, sorry, I was just looking for the picture. Paranormal investigator said they heard noises and saw shadowy figures and thrown stones at the asylum. One even said he got an unexplained bruise after his visit. But it should be noted that the building isn't truly abandoned. And that's the other thing, too, I want to throw out. Just because a building is abandoned does not mean that somebody actually owns the property. If it's not owned by a particular individual, then most likely it's owned by the state. Or in this case, I don't know if it's counties or whatever they have in Wales, but it's either way, it's owned by the area. So again, ghost hunters should get permission before visiting. Today, okay, here we go. Today, the former hospital belongs to Robert Holmes, who has not mentioned any plan to demolish or change it. The company has repeatedly warned trespassers from entering, not for the history. All artifacts, fortunately, have been collected and cataloged elsewhere, but the structure remains unsafe. But it definitely has a very haunting look to it, I got to admit. It's just one of those locations that, not a very big location, but just has a very historic and haunted look to it. It's shrouded in the trees. There's nothing but woods surrounding it. So that is kind of like, that is like your classic haunted hospital, just shrouded in mystery. Moving forward next to number 6, the New Sham Park Hospital. And I believe this might be the one that might last. It's not going to last terribly long, but this was the most amount of information I was able to find on this. I just wanted to make a quick check on, okay, not much in the comments. Before 1869, there was no institution in Liverpool, England, for the support and education of the orphans of British seamen. The first move to establish such an institution was made by a group of leading Liverpool ship owners in 1868. The sponsors of the project comprised a group of ship owners and merchants who for some time had been concerned about how best to help the widows and families of deceased Merseyside men, including those lost at sea. Members of the public, which were invited to attend a meeting at the Mercantile Marine Service Association rooms on December 16th, at which the resolution to found such an establishment was proposed by Ralph Brocklebank and Bryce Allen, both leading ship owners and I can never get that word right, philanthropists. James Beasley, another leading ship owner, was invited to be chairman of the committee to establish an orphanage. It was James Beasley who, on December 17th, wrote to 9 of his colleagues, offering to donate £500 to start a building fund if they would donate the same amount. There was an immediate response to this letter, and further donations were received following a more widespread public appeal. In 1869, an account was opened at Haywood's Bank, Brunswick Street. Within a few months, there was enough money for the General Committee to look around for a temporary home. On August 9th, the Liverpool Seamen's Orphan Institution opened in temporary rented accommodation on Duke Street. And by the end of that year, there were 46 boys and 14 girls in residence. On April 17, 1870, Liverpool Town Council gave 7,000 square yards of land on the northeast side of Newsham Park to construct a seamen's orphanage institution. On September 11, 1871, the foundation stone of new building was laid by Mr. Ralph Brocklebank, the first president. The foundation stone of the chapel was laid on August 1st, 1873, and the Liverpool Mercury carried the following report on August 2nd, entitled Liverpool Seamen's Orphanage Institution, laying the foundation stone of the chapel. On January 30th, 1874, there was held an informal opening of the north wing of the orphanage, as well as the children who moved from the temporary orphanage in Duke Street. The committee also looked after children on an outdoor relief basis. The institution was formally opened on September 30th by the Duke of Edinburgh, the sailor prince, fourth son of Queen Victoria. As of June 1884, around 800 fatherless children were being supported by the orphanage, of which half were living at the orphanage and an equal number were being supported at home with their mothers. It was understood that the average annual cost to support one child in the orphanage was around £15, equivalent to £2,100 in 2023, compared to £8, equivalent to £1,100 in 2023 annually for those supported at home. The institution was financially supported entirely by voluntary donations. In May 1886, Queen Victoria visited the institution and added her name to the list of patrons. From the outset of the education of the children was given top priority, and from 1892, the boys' school, and from 1898, the girls' school were administered strictly under government regulations, and the institution received a share of the parliamentary grant from the Education Department. By 1899, there were 321 children in the orphanage, while 508 were receiving outdoor relief in the form of monetary grants and clothing. Children of all religious denominations were assisted, with preference given to orphans of British seamen connected to the port of Liverpool. The scholastic and religious instruction was under the supervision of the Church of England chaplain. The First World War, of course, brought problems, and by 1918, 1,000 orphans were being assisted. Royal appreciation of the work was shown from time to time by visits to Newsham Park, and following a visit by Queen Mary and the Princess Royal in 1921, George V bestowed upon the institution the title Royal, and granted it a royal charter of incorporation. In the interwar years, the institution made continued progress. During the Second World War, the children were evacuated to Hillbark, Frankby, rural, the country home of Mr. E.B. Royden, a devoted friend and committee member. Here the children remained and flourished throughout the war. In 1946, preparations were made for a return to Newsham Park, but with the great expansion of the country's social service schemes, many surviving parents were understandably reluctant to place their children in the orphanage. This led to a gradual decline in the number of resident children. New laws prohibited children under 11 years of age from being educated at the same school as older children, and young children from living in an institutional school. Despite Newsham Park's endowment, financial difficulties were increasing, and there seemed little prospect of bridging the widening gap between income and expenditure. As a result, the orphanage was closed on July 27, 1949, while continuing to implement the objectives of the founders in providing means for the education and maintenance for the children of deceased British Merchant Navy seamen. Places in various schools were found for those being housed and educated at Newsham Park. Most were transferred to the Royal Merchant Navy School at Bearwood, fees, etc., being borne by Newsham Park. The sale of the premises at Newsham Park to the Ministry of Health for use as a hospital, realized at £125,000 in 1951, proceeds were forwarded to the charity commissioners for investment. That the committee continued to provide support to orphan seamen children on a new resident basis, thus continuing to pursue the original objectives of the institution's founders with special emphasis on education. Newsham Park's hospital opened its doors in 1954. The hospital developed its own psychiatric department and received an influx of patients with severe mental problems. The work of the institution in providing for the relief and education of the orphan children of seamen continues today, and in 1969, the institution celebrated centenary. The hospital officially stopped taking new patients in 1988, and by 1992, all remaining patients and staff were relocated. In that same year, with the closure of the Rainhill Lunatic Asylum, the inmates were moved to Newsham Park Hospital, taking up 90% of its space. £1.6 million were spent on the hospital so it could house its new patients. There are still notices posted on boards in the school block and paperwork on the property that are dated 1996. All records of patients and staff have been closed for 100 years since 1997, when the building was finally vacated of patients and staff. In 1990, that same year, the property was bought in auction by a property developer. In 2004, a plan by its owners, Gateway Properties, to develop the building into flats was defeated by local regeneration campaigners, and in July 2007, the site was put up for sale. The site is now owned by property developer Angle Farm Limited. Okay, I guess I didn't have a picture for that one. Their associates Land Ecology Limited have submitted a planning application to convert and refurbish part of the historic building into an events venue, including kitchen facilities, dining restaurant and bar, function and seminar facilities, external seating area, and all associated works. But perhaps, not surprisingly, Newsham Park Hospital is also rumored to be haunted. Perhaps the paranormal activity, like disembodied voices and inexplicable footsteps, comes from its time as an orphanage during World War II, when, sadly, typical of these hospitals, when traumatized children were punished harshly and separated from their siblings, rather than cared for with love and empathy. Employees and visitors have reported seeing ghosts and hearing strange noises. Reported sightings of ghosts included that of a small child on the top floor corridor and shadowy figures on Ward G. Visitors to the basement have reported an uneasy feeling and dragging noises have been heard from the dining room while nobody is there. Empty wheeled empty wheelchairs and corridors. I'm not sure. I guess I must have missed something on that one. Distant voices, shadowy figures in stairwells, tools disappearing and reappearing in different parts of the building, a child's singing voice, and ghost hunters can even stay overnight at this abandoned hospital, where the schoolhouse, nurses' quarters, and chapel are all supposedly the most active. So now moving down to number 5, and now this is definitely one that I'm sure most of us have not heard of, unless you guys have lived in this country. Those who live in this country, a location that's called Harstolen. If I'm saying that correct, I hope I'm saying that correctly, because this location, Harstolen, formerly Leicester Sanatorium, was a tuberculosis sanatorium and later psychiatric hospital in Norway, established in 1902, located on a remote hill some 500 meters above Jordan in Sagen. A 5,000 square meter large building, the sanatorium had its own water power supply and was accessed by an aerial tramway. The sanatorium had about 150 patients at any given time and about as many employees, with about 15,000 total patients until its repurposing in 1958, and was the largest one in Norway. Attendant treatments of tuberculosis included being exposed to dry and fresh air, and surgical interventions such as plombage of the lungs and the removal of ribs, until antibiotics led to a revolution in the treatment of the disease in the 1940s. The average time of the sanatorium was 135 days. Between 1895 and 1955, sadly, about 250,000 Norwegians died from tuberculosis. Drawn by one of the leading architects from Bergen, Adolf Fischer, the sanatorium was originally accessed. Just repeating information again, was originally accessed by a now defunct aerial tramway, but a road was later constructed to the site. The main building was expanded several times, and several more buildings were constructed around the sanatorium, including workers' residency, a chapel, a morgue, and a stable. There was also a bakery, a cinema, and a library, a well-maintained park, and the rooms had water closets and bathtubs, which was not common in Norway at the time. Before I continue with just describing with the history of this particular hospital in Norway, I'm pretty sure it's giving some of you guys Waverly vibes. If anything, I kind of see, excuse me, I pretty much see this location as Norway's Waverly Hill Sanatorium, if you look at it very carefully. And I just want to give a shout out, because I was looking for this and I was able to gather a lot of this information with an investigator who's a member of the Norwegian Ghost Hunters. Her name is Tanje Stalin, if I'm saying that correctly. Tanje, if you're watching this later, I just want to apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly, because I don't speak Norwegian, nor do I have any Norwegian ancestry. So, but I definitely want to give a shout out to her and the Norwegian Ghost Hunters, who I've become very good friends with, which I definitely would encourage you guys also. They have a YouTube series of their own. I think really one of the only paranormal series out there that I think that's ever been shot in Norway. There might be one other series out there I did see, but this is the one that's really caught my attention. And although it is in Norwegian, they do have English captions, so you will be able to watch it, even if you don't understand it, but there's English captions. But big, huge shout out and thanks to the Norwegian Ghost Hunters and Tanje. Thank you guys so much. From 1959 to 1991, the former sanatorium was used as a psychiatric hospital. The closure was controversial, and many locals believed it only had financial motivations from the county. In the early 1990s, it was used as an asylum seeker center for a couple of years, as the first and largest operated by the state in Norway, with 340 refugees. There was conflicts between the new residents and the local community after the refugees complained that it was worse to live there due to its remoteness in Bosnia and Herzegovina, yeah, from which they had fled. After being threatened with plans to demolish the building, it was in 2021 revealed that new owners had begun to renovate the hospital as a hotel, although still not fully financed by investors. In recent years, the derelict sanatorium has been used for filming the 2015 horror movie Vilmark Asylum and has been a popular destination for ghost hunters, including the aforementioned group I just mentioned, urban explorers, bloggers, and social media influencers. Although recently the area has been closed off and intruders have faced police charges. But definitely, if ever given the chance of going to Norway, and if I'm able to gain access legally into it, I would definitely love to investigate this location. And I'm going to have to, and I definitely am going to have to check out this movie, Vilmark Asylum. This I got to see, and certainly a movie I've never even heard of before. Which brings us to number 4, which is another location in Norway, the Lyre Psychos. Psychos, I think I'm saying that right. The Lyre Psychos, formerly known as Lyre Asyl, has an intriguing history dating back to 1926. Located in Lyre, Buskerud, Norway, this hospital complex was born from a joint initiative of the Buskerud and Vestfold districts to build a psychiatric hospital on land purchased in 1921. The architect Victor Norden, already experienced in designing hospital structures, designed the ring of buildings in neoclassical style with Jugendstil influences. The hospital consisted of 8 large main buildings and some accessory structures such as a gatehouse and a chapel. The hospital, as I mentioned before, opened in 1926. In the 1940s, the name was changed to Lyre Psychos. Lyre Hospital was originally named Lyre Asylum and later Lyre Psychiatric Hospital. During its heyday, the hospital housed around 600 patients with various psychiatric disorders. However, it is sadly known for the controversial experiments conducted on patients, including the use of LSD and lobotomies. Abuse was known to have occurred between 1945 and 1974. LSD trials, lobotomies, new drug trials, ECT drug deaths, and radioactive isotopes on patients were a frequent phenomenon at the hospital. One of the most active hospitals in the testing of new medicines in Norway was undoubtedly Lyre Hospital. According to Chief Odd Lingjared, again, I don't know if I'm saying that right, the hospital itself had to test new medications on humans in cases where the industry itself could not test them. Lingjared considered it a moral obligation to assist the pharmaceutical industry in research. In addition, previously hygienist in Ingar Amborgen emerged, told about the horrific conditions for the inserted insulation, prolonged use of belts, straitjacket, and general defaults. In his debut novel, The 23rd of 1981, he described a shocking meeting with the patients and on collective abuse. The novel is based on the years of 1974 and 1975, when Amban Jorson himself worked as a nursing assistant at Lyre Hospital. It was a strange experience to see how fast you could fall morally, said Amban Jorson. The stay made a deep mark and has characterized him as a human and author since. Now, in the 1980s, 4 of the main buildings were closed due to reduced need for beds. More were closed in the 1990s, and operations gradually scaled down until 2018, when all operations were transferred to Blackstead Psychos. Today, many of the original buildings have been demolished, except for some that remain as a testament to a complex and controversial past. Lyre Psychos is not only a piece of architectural history, but also a symbol of past psychiatric practices with all its dark sides and evolutions. Unfortunately, I couldn't really find a lot of pictures of the history involving the Psychos, so that's why you guys haven't seen any pictures of anything. So, again, I can only find so much when it comes to some of these locations. Apparently, Former patients in the past have shared their space with paranormal activity, such as apparitions and noises. While paranormal investigators and trespassers claim to see ghosts and shadows, not many solid accounts are available about Lear Psychus. Nonetheless, it is considered one of the most haunted places in Norway, which I'm going to say real quick, again, with a shout out for the Norwegian ghost hunters. They had actually investigated this place, and they have an episode of their show on this location. So once again, if you guys want to know more about it and see how much activity that's set to occur within the Psychus, definitely please check out please check out the Norwegian Ghost Hunters YouTube channel, and definitely get an inside look of the Lear Psychus, because I'm sure I've watched some of their shows, and the readings they've gotten in this case from a Norwegian standpoint, it is very, very fascinating. They do such a great job of investigating these locations and bringing exposure to such locations like this one. So yeah, definitely check them out if you want to know more information about the Lear Psychus. And finally, when it comes to Scandinavian countries, I got one more location that, once again, the Norwegian ghost hunters have also investigated, but it's not in Norway this time. This one's called the Sandtresk Sanatorium, and this time, this is located in, well, as I'm about to say, the Sandtresk Sanatorium, once a prominent tuberculosis treatment center, is located in the northern part of nearby Sweden. Established in the early 20th century, it played a crucial role in the fight against tuberculosis, a major health issue at the time. The sanatorium was designed to provide patients with fresh air and rest, which were considered essential for recovery. Although it is no longer functioning as a medical facility, the site remains a point of historical interest, reflecting the medical practices and architectural styles of its era. The talk about providing fresh air, I'm sure some of you guys are probably getting Waverly Hills vibes again. So you can kind of say that this is, again, in this case, the Waverly Hills Sanatorium of Sweden. Now, it was opened in 1931 and had a maximum of 409 acre places. Oh, excuse me, 409 care places. Wow. From the 1930s, 26,000 patients were cared for at the tuberculosis hospital in Sandträsk outside of Boden, Sweden. Over half of the patients died there. There was also classrooms for children who went to school here, and it's very sad to think that half of the children never got to return home. The 95-meter-long building that functioned as a sanatorium in Sandträsk is located 40 kilometers northwest of Boden town, and it carries a large part of Norrboten's history during the tuberculosis pandemic. The closure of the business began in 1955, as the need for care began to decrease when effective antibiotics against tuberculosis bacteria were developed. Okay, another fade in, but anyways, numerous ghost stories and paranormal activity has circulated around the sanatorium since its closure. Thrill seekers and ghost hunters who have ventured inside have collected numerous evidence, particularly that of the spirit of a little girl who was believed to have been one of the patients who had died during the TB epidemic. Others had, and which, by the way, there is an actual photo that was supposedly taken of this little girl. I was going to add this to the slideshow. Unfortunately, I was in such a rush of getting this done again. I didn't have time to really add it to the slideshow. But just also a word to note too, even though I'm kind of providing a shortened version of it, this doesn't mean that I won't talk about these locations again. Eventually, all 15 of these locations will eventually be talked about in their own episodes. So in a future case, this location, including this photo, will definitely feel a lot more of a detailed historic and paranormal account. Others have had much more intense and frightening encounters with numerous shadow people and apparitions, their faces etched with anguish and despair. It's no wonder that Sandträsk, again, similar to with Norway, is undoubtedly one of the most haunted locations in Sweden. Which now brings us to number 2, the Towers Asylum. Back to the UK in this case. One of the more recently used hospitals on this list, Towers Asylum functioned as a psychiatric facility from 1869 to 2013. The site chosen for the hospital had previously been occupied by Victoria House, of which the main block still remains. The former home of Benjamin Broadbent, a leading businessman, master builder, and architect whose works were well renowned across the Midlands at the time. He built a house on the site in the late 1850s and moved in early 1860. Following his death in 1862, his son Benjamin Jr. sold the house and 30 acres of land to the Leicestershire Council for £8,000. The house had to be demolished due to dry rot, and the grounds were used for the Leicester Towers Hospital, formerly called the Leicester Borough Lunatic Asylum. The English hospital adapted through many phases of mental health care, including serving as a World War II hospital patient overflow site. The hospital, which was designed by Edward Loney Stevens, using a corridor layout with compact aero additions, opened as the Leicester Borough Lunatic Asylum in September 1869. An extension to the male ward, designed by George Thomas Hine, was completed in 1883, and a corresponding extension to the female ward, also designed by Hine, was completed in 1890. A bathhouse, also designed by Hine, was added in 1913. The facility became the Leicester, okay, I think I got that right now, Leicester City Mental Hospital in the 1920s. It was also another site of overcrowding and rampant sedation techniques that left the mentally ill in inhumane conditions, in addition to not receiving proper care for their illnesses. 3 detached villa properties built in the 1930s were made available to the emergency medical service during the Second World War. It became known as Towers Hospital in 1947. The facility joined the National Health Service as the Towers Hospital in 1948. After the introduction of care in the community in the early 1980s, the hospital went to a period of decline, in which it closed its beds in 2000 and closed entirely in April 2013. The administration building, which became known as George Hine House, was converted for a ski-free school in 2014. Surprisingly, for a hospital like this, I couldn't find a lot of historic pictures of the hospital in its operating days. This hospital for the insane, however, is known for its intense paranormal activity. Experienced ghost hunters have been known to be scared at this haunted location. The hauntings at Towers Asylum clearly come from those horrific acts, like the metal shackles that were found attached to the walls in the basement, despite the architectural beauty of the building, obviously, as you see on the outside. Past investigators have witnessed all sorts of paranormal activity here, from disembodied voices, shouts and bangs, and objects being thrown, among many other disturbing occurrences. Dark shadows, doors slamming shut by unseen hands, sounds of cries and anger, loud bangs coming from nowhere, unexplained myths, and light anomalies have also been reported. The building was recently opened to investigators. However, at the time of writing, it's currently undergoing redevelopment for residential use. Which, before I get to the final number on the list, not very much in the chat, so that's no big deal. First off, I need another drink after all this conversation. Okay, which brings us to our final location, which this one is kind of a little bit more familiar, but I don't think has received much of the same familiarity like you see with Waverly Hills or Wildwood, as examples. And that number 1 would be Danvers State Hospital, which most of it actually no longer exists, but we'll get to that in just a short minute or so. Danvers State Hospital, an extensive mental health care facility in Danvers, Massachusetts, established in 1874, reflects changing attitudes toward treatment of the insane and its exceptionally well-preserved buildings and grounds. It is dominated by the 1874 Kirkbride complex, a huge brick with granite trim structure designed by noted Boston architect Nathaniel G. Bradley in the Victorian Gothic style. I forgot I had a photo of him. Closely modeled on the precepts of Thomas S. Kirkbride, and includes space for patients, attendants, and administration, reflecting a centralized approach to care. Later, buildings such as the male and female nurses' homes represent the segregation of patients and staff. The male and female tubercular buildings in the Bonner Medical Building represent specialization of medical treatment. The cottages, repair shops, and farm buildings represent an increased self-sufficiency for the hospital. An emphasis on occupational therapy and increased dispersal of the hospital population. When built, it represented the latest contemporary advances in technology and in engineering as well as architecture. Later additions reflect changes in mental health care philosophy and was contribute to an understanding of the overall functioning of the hospital. Historically, Danvers State Hospital is significant for its leading role in treatment for people with disabilities, including an advanced occupational therapy program, early training facilities for staff, and a long-term concern with community health issues. The Danvers State Hospital was officially opened in 1878 after 4 years of construction. At a cost of $1.5 million at the time, the hospital originally consisted of 2 main center buildings housing the administration, with 4 radiating wings on each side of the administration block. The kitchen, laundry, chapel, and dormitories for the attendants were in a connecting building in the rear. Middleton Pond supplied the hospital its water. On each side of the main building were the wings for male and female patients, respectively. The outermost wards were reserved for the most hostile patients. Over the years, newer buildings were constructed around the original Kirkbride, and the alterations were made to the Kirkbride itself, such as a new gymnasium/auditorium on the area of the old kitchens and multiple solaria added onto the front of the wards. Most of the buildings on campus were connected by a labyrinth of tunnels. Many of the Commonwealth institutions for the developmentally delayed and the mentally ill at the time were designed with tunnel systems to be self-sufficient in wintertime. There was a tunnel that ran from a steam power generating plant, which still exists to provide service to the Hogan Regional Center, located at the bottom of the hill, running up to the hospital, along with tunnels that connected the male and female nurses' homes, the Gray Gables, Bonner Medical Building, machine shops, pump house, and a few others. Now, the original plan was to house 500 patients with attic space, potentially housing 1,000 more. By the late 1930s and 1940s, over 2,000 patients were being housed, and overcrowding was severe. People were even held in the basements of the Kirkbride. While the asylum was established to provide residential treatment and care to the mentally ill, its functions expanded to include a training program for nurses in 1889 and a pathological research center in 1895. In the 1890s, Dr. Charles Page, the superintendent, declared mechanical restraint unnecessary and harmful in cases of mental illness. By the 1920s, the hospital was operating school clinics to help determine mental deficiency in children. Reports were made that various inhumane shock therapies, lobotomies, drugs, and straitjackets were being used to keep the crowded hospital under control. Sorry, if you guys heard that noise, that was my cat jumping by. Slanks. Anyways, this sparked controversy, not surprisingly. During the 1960s, as a result of increased emphasis on alternative methods of treatment, Slinks, get out of here, deinstitutionalization and community-based mental health care, the inpatient population started to decrease. Massive budgets cuts in the 1960s played a major role in the progressive closing of Danvers State Hospital. The hospital began closing wards and facilities as early as 1969. By 1985, the majority of the original hospital wards were closed or abandoned. The administration block in the original Kirkbride building closed in 1989. Patients were moved to the Bonner Medical Building across the campus. The entire campus was closed on June 24, 1992, and all patients were either transferred to the community or to other facilities. Now, in December 2005, the property was sold to Avalon Base Community, a residential apartment developer. A lawsuit was filed by a local preservation fund to stave off, unfortunately, the demolition of the hospital, including the Kirkbride building, which was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Sadly, this did not stop the process, however, and demolition of most of the buildings began in January 2006 with the intent to build 497 apartments on the 77-acre site, as you can see in this picture right here, which is a sad sight to see. By June of that year, all of the Danvers State Hospital buildings that were marked for demolition had been torn down, including all of the unused buildings and old homes of the lower grounds and all of the buildings on the hill. Demolition was done by Testacorp of Wakefield, Massachusetts. The historic Kirkbride was also demolished, which it's hard to see, but once I say that, I read this, with only the outermost brick shell of the administration area, along with the G and D wards on each side, being propped up during demolition and construction, while an entirely new structure was built behind and inside of it, leaving the Danvers Reservoir and the original brick shell. Much of the wood from the demolition project was salvaged and recycled into flooring and other millwork. A replica of the original tower / steeple on the Kirkbride was built to duplicate what was removed around 1970 due to structural issues. The first picture illustrates the original tower in 1893. The second and third pictures illustrate the new replica in 2006 and 7. And the fourth picture illustrates from the one from 1970. Avalon Bay predicted that they would have properties available for rent or sale by fall 2007. On April 7th of that year, 4 of the adjacent complex buildings and 4 of Avalon's base construction trailers burned down in a large fire visible from Boston. Visible from Boston, nearly 17 miles away. Damage was confined mostly to the buildings under construction on the eastern end, but the remaining Kirkbride spires caught fire due to the high heat. The tunnel leading up from the power still exists, but is blocked at the top of the hill. Only the exteriors, like I said, was Kirkbride complex was preserved in the demolition, and the cemeteries, several block tunnels, and the brick shell of the administration and the D and G wings are all that remained from the original site, which shows here in this 2010 photo, which it's hard to believe that it doesn't even look like it was ever demolished. It's kind of a weird way how they demolished a good majority of the entire original building, but left just the exterior of the hospital to remain. It's never really been explained why they left the exterior, and that they kind of replicated when they turned this into a hospital. But you can clearly see it just doesn't look like it was ever demolished in the first place. But yes, it's sad that most of the building is gone, but at least parts of the building, including the cemetery, still remain, including the exterior. So in some way, Danvers State Hospital is still kind of standing in some way, shape, or form. However, that does not stop the stories of paranormal activity that occur within this former hospital. And it's not just the paranormal side of things. The Danvers State Hospital is believed by literary historians to have served as inspiration for the infamous Arkham Sanatorium from H.P. Lovecraft's The Thing on the Doorstep. Lovecraft's Arkham, in turn, is the inspiration for Arkham Asylum, a psychiatric hospital within the Batman universe. It is referenced by name in the short story Pickman's Model and The Shadow over Innsmouth. The hospital was also the setting for the 2001 horror film Session 9, which I have seen. That was a real, it's not necessarily the best movie, but it's still a great movie, which was directed by Lucky McGee, who also directed another movie that was called May, which is a disturbingly psychiatric horror movie. But yeah, it's, oh, I'm sorry, no, it wasn't made by Lucky McGee. That was, Session 9 was directed by Brad Anderson. But yeah, Session 9, it's either way, it's still a really good and underrated horror film, and they shot it, it's really cool that they shot it at the actual hospital. And in addition to, even prior to Session 9, while the hospital was still in operation, believe it or not, the asylum was also featured in the 1958 film Home Before Dark, which, despite its name, I don't know if it's really a horror movie. I think it's supposed to be more of a drama film. In the book Project 17 by Lori Faria Stolars, the plot involves 6 teens breaking into Danvers to investigate. With such sad, now to get to the real paranormal side of things, with such sadness, neglect, abuse, and trauma comes a staining of the land. From the involvement with the Salem witch trials to the horrors that occurred at Danvers, the land that the hospital was on is truly one of the most haunted. The only remnants of the horrid practices here, like I said, are 2 cemeteries filled with 770 bodies. Some headstones only have numbers as opposed to names. On a more terrifying note, and this is what I just briefly mentioned, the judge that presided over the Salem witch trials of 1692, John Hawthorne, lived on that land that Danvers was built upon a few hundred years ago. Perhaps the dark history of the land is what caused Danvers State Hospital to become such a dark and infamous place. Even in death, administrators at Danvers State Hospital did not dignify their patients. Visitors to the property report screaming, banging, and crying. The cemeteries are also hotbeds of paranormal activity, in which apparitions are commonplace and disembodied voices are the only sound. Visitors often report seeing dark, deep black shadows flitting about the property. Others see grayish mists moving slowly around, following people who come to the site. Could these be the day spirits of the lobotomy patients that died here? With a nickname like Hell House on the Hill and the inspiration for Arkham Asylum, Danvers State Hospital is one of Massachusetts' most haunted. That's for sure. And that is officially it. We made it, guys. We officially made it. And let's see.
That was amazing. That really was amazing, Nick. Look, that one, oh God, which one? I think it was the first one in the Sweden area,
Oh,
or in the Norway area.
yeah.
The one that caught fire a couple times. That
Yeah.
one looked, I mean, I'll be honest with you. That one looked spooky before it burned down. After it burned down, it was even worse.
Yeah, it did. It really was. And I've never really heard of like really a lot of haunted locations, especially in this case, hospitals, having more than one fire occur. And it just, no matter what they did, like you just said, they just gave it a much more spookier look to it.
It kind of reminds me a little bit when you say that. It reminds me a little bit of the for Rasputin, and I don't know if you know the story about him, but he was he was basically like a witch doctor for the last emperor of Russia.
Okay.
And his wife, and they ended up shooting him, stabbing him, drowning him before he died. The man just wouldn't die. They tried to poison him, I believe. But yeah, they tried to kill him a couple times before he finally died. But he was one of those guys who was into a lot of the, like doing a lot of the witchy kind of stuff. So
Witchcraft, yeah.
and yeah, and that the story of him, the story of the whole family is just tragic all around.
Yeah,
But
it really is. I've heard of a few things about it, but I haven't really heard too many details. So that's something I'm going to have to definitely look into.
yeah, he's definitely one of the, I mean, when you want to talk about people like, people who just have a mysterious way about him, I think he kind of tops the charts,
Yeah,
you got, yeah, you got someone like him. You got someone, of course, you got all the classics to me, like Genghis Khan.
oh, Genghis
I mean,
Khan. Yeah,
he and his life. There are a lot of really cool people out there, and I really appreciate, Nick, what you do with all this, and I want to thank you so very much for coming back and doing this for this show. I think it added so much to what we're doing here for the 2025 mission for Healthy Heroes. So I want to thank you so very much.
yeah, my absolute pleasure. Thanks for letting me come on and do this again. And I'm already looking forward to obviously what it's going to be like for next year, which I've already kind of coming up with some ideas already for next year. One of them, ironically, because on one of the shows I did from the UK with Lois and Wayne and a few others from a few days ago, we were talking about haunted battlefields. I thought, you know what, that would
Yeah,
probably make another great addition for this event for next year.
we when my uncle passed, in which I didn't get to stop and so badly wanted to stop, but I drove through the city of uh, Bull Custer. Where'd Custer die? I'm tired. Uh, Bull Run. George Custer. Damn it! I can't. I'm drawing a blank. The big Indian massacre of George Custer.
Oh,
I
yeah, yeah, okay.
I had I we drove through there, but unfortunately the weather wouldn't allow me to stop. But yeah, driving through just a lot of that stuff in Montana and Kansas, not Kansas, sorry, but Wyoming. A lot of like ancient lands that you can see in there, medieval or not medieval, but Indian land
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So I mean, I think that sounds like a great show. I think like haunted firehouses would be a really
yeah,
cool one
that's
too.
another one.
So, but well,
And
Nick,
eventually, these locations again, they're going to get their own episodes because obviously, I was just kind of more presenting just more of a cut down to it. So these locations definitely will be reviewed again in future episodes. I already written them on my list.
yeah, well, you know what? When you do that one in when you do that one that we were talking about, the one in Sweden,
Yeah,
or let me know. I definitely want to pay attention for that one
if it's
because
possible, I could even try to talk to the because I sometimes show videos on the slide for like when it comes to paranormal stuff. I might even be able to get their permission, to even show some of their show, of what they may capture in it. So I might be able to provide an investigation video. As far as I know, I think that might be the only recorded investigation that I know of that they've done at that location.
no, I'm looking forward to anything and everything that you do, Nick. Like I said, the programs that you put out are so cool. I'm a history buff. I love history. So when you add the history to the paranormal, it just gives me something to be excited about because I do like the history. I just love the history. So, but
So do I.
Nick, again, thank you so very much for being part of this. Let's work on next year and let's get this done again. Okay, buddy?
Sounds good. Thanks again for having me.
Not a problem. Have a good one.
You as well. Take care.
All right, goodbye. I want to thank Nick